Well, welcome guys to Uncut and Real Raw with Clint Anderson. We've got Jason Martin and Charlie Cole, correct?
Yep.
That's us.
Well, good to have you guys here. Well, listen, we've never actually met before this podcast, but I've known of you guys. I don't know if you knew of me, but I've known of you guys for several years now. And I've always wanted to get to know you guys, understand your story, understand why you're so successful at what you do. I've heard a lot of positive things about you guys, but the things that I keep hearing the most, and I've heard this for over a decade now, you guys are really well educated when it comes to the finances of the horse business. You know, the typical stereotype of horse trainers working their ass off, dying broke, and not investing their money is a pretty typical stereotype. You know, in any industry, whether it's reiners, cutters, doesn't matter what it is, nobody wants to die broke. You guys have been very financially successful and smart with your money. And I hear that a lot. And I think that's a credit because that's some people, but people don't want to talk about that side of the business is how do you make it financially stable? And not only that, but can you retire on it? You know, is it a sustainable business? I hear that. I hear you guys take extremely good care of your customers. And the customers have been with you for a lot of time, long time, and you both have strengths and weaknesses that you fit each other. Where one's strong, the other one's weak, and vice versa, and that's what made you two a fucking phenomenal team for so long. So I'm not from, so your business is called Highpoint Performance Horses, is that correct? Highpoint Performance Horses. Now, primarily, and help educate me a little bit now too, this is what? Western Pleasure? What are the events that you guys did, at least started in your career? We'll get to the end of it later, but at least, you know, as far as what? Western Pleasure, horsemanship, what is it, Jason?
So when it started,
what is it now? How about we just say right now? Well, maybe not even right now, because I know I've heard that you've digressed a little bit and gone in some different areas with some barrel horses and stuff. But when you guys were in your peak of High Point, what was it then? Was it mainly, what were the events?
All of the events, mostly.
Okay, well, just for the uneducated like me, and I'm not from the AQHA world, so excuse my ignorance.
So we had a lot of amateurs and youth, and we did showmanship, horsemanship, trail, Western riding.
Horsemanship, showmanship,
trail,
Western riding, Western Pleasure,
hunter and saddle, hunter hack, working hunter,
holy shit,
driving,
driving,
A little bit of
halter. So you
yeah.
guys truly were the all-round horse trainers, correct?
We were really one of the only ones that did all across the board.
Yeah.
Really for a long time.
To me, that's a fucking major turn on for me because I like the old school mentality where a lot of my mentors trained cutting horses, they trained a reining horse, they had to train a pleasure horse. Because those all-round horsemen, especially in today's world where we've got so specialized, you have reining trainers and cutting trainers and you know, cow horse trainers and so forth. Not very many people cross over anymore. And it's, to me, it's that's one of the reasons, I don't know if you ever listened to the podcast I did with Tommy Mannion. I love those older guys that did it all because you had to be a true horseman to do that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying people aren't horsemen that specialize, because they are, and they're very, very talented horsemen and women. But there's an art to fucking doing it all, isn't there? There's an art to crossing over. There's an art to be able to get on a pleasure horse and then get on a Western rider and then get on this. You know what I'm trying to say? So that to me is very difficult, and you don't see it much anymore. And I think a lot of our horsemanship as an industry is disappearing in some areas because we're getting so specialized now that you get a guy out of his world and he's pretty lost.
Yeah.
You know, you got a guy that's won $8 million in reining and you said saddle up a wild Mustang. I don't think they'd know how to do it. No disrespect, but it's just that we've lost a skill set there, you know.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, let's kind of get started here. So, Jason, let's start with you a little bit. I usually try to back up a little bit to give myself and the viewers a bit of an understanding of where we came from. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Clovis, California.
Okay. Come from a horse background, no horses? What?
No horses.
No horses. City kid?
City kid, yep.
Yep.
My mother sat next to a lady in church whose grandson rode horses, and so for my 8th birthday, she got me a riding lesson.
Okay. And you instantly took to it? You enjoyed it? Tell us about that.
Yeah, I definitely did. From that day forward, I started taking lessons, and you know, one thing turned into another, and I haven't turned back. So
you finished high school?
Yep.
Horse crazy all through high school?
Yep.
Okay. What happened when you finished high school?
I went to college about 4 different times for about a month at a time.
And just education wasn't for you. You wanted to be educated in the arena.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me, even though you didn't come from a horse background, were your parents supportive of the horses from an early age, or they thought it was just a boy with a hobby?
Pretty much. I don't think my dad ever thought it could be a profession.
Yes, a lot of people don't.
So
Yes.
he got on board more towards later in my career.
Yep.
When I'd pull in with a new truck or trailer, he would start thinking, maybe he could make a living. So they always supported my lessons, but.
They didn't think it was a viable business.
Correct.
For you to do. I remember I left high school when I was 15, and I remember that the guidance counselor gave me tons of shit about why you're leaving school, and I would take in the American magazines, Horse and Rider, Western Horseman, and say, look, this is an industry. People make money from this. I couldn't convince people that this wasn't just a boy crush and it was just a hobby, that this was an actual industry.
Yeah.
So that's pretty common for people that aren't in a horse background, wouldn't you say?
For sure. Yeah.
Okay. So after college, that's when you decided you wanted to be in the horses full time?
Yeah, I started giving riding lessons around the neighborhood, and just one thing kind of turned into another. And
did you have any mentors at that time, Jason, in your life? Like, who was teaching you? Who was showing you the industry?
I rode my last year with Paul Laduri and Benny Gatron.
Okay, as a youth?
As a youth.
Yep.
And, they were really good to me. They let me work off 90% of my fees.
Yes.
And so then after that, I stayed around the neighborhood and gave jumping lessons. Because jumping was I started in pony club, so
Yep.
3-day eventing was my background in the jumping.
Okay.
And so
was that your background because you enjoyed it more, or that was just what was available rather than cow, horse, reining, etc.?
that was the lesson my mom set me up for.
Okay, so it could have quite easily gone the other direction too.
It could have been
you would
anything.
have got a Western lesson as your first lesson.
For
it could
sure.
have quite easily gone that direction.
For sure. Yeah.
Okay, so that's kind of where you cut your teeth, and that's kind of where you stayed.
Yeah.
Okay, so after college, did you just say school's not for me? I want to be in the arena. You'd made your mind up what you want to do for a living.
Yeah. Originally I thought I'd go to school and maybe get a teacher's credential in case I ever needed to fall back on something. But at the same time, I was giving lessons and showing, and I think just my desire to be a horse trainer, took it the front seat, and I just did that.
Yeah, very good. Was there, and what town or did you get started in California?
In Clovis, California.
So was that a big English background in there, or not really?
Not really. There's
Right.
just a local stable that had a pony club, and that's where I went.
So basically, what, age 20 you kind of went out on your own, would you say?
I would say I think I started probably at 19.
Okay. And tough to get started, struggling to eat? Tell me about the economics.
I lived at home, so I wasn't struggling. I just gave lessons. So I just get in my little car and drive around the neighborhood, and then I'd take...
So you didn't actually have a barn to work
Nope.
out of? You just got in the car and went from lesson to lesson?
I called it the Jason Martin Riding Academy.
I loved it. Sounds classy as fuck.
Yeah, exactly. I just gave lessons, and then I took my
Do you
first...
remember what you were charging for lessons back then?
I can't imagine.
Seriously,
I
mate,
don't know.
tell us what you were.
I have no idea. No idea.
It's got to be cheap.
But I took my first person I took to the World Show, the Youth World. We won the World.
Oh, truly?
And that
In
kind
what
of...
event?
In the Working Hunter and the Jumping. I took 2 different people.
Okay.
And so that kind of just set me up to...
So how old are you at that point when you go to the World Show?
It was 1987.
1987. How old were you?
You would have been 18 or 19.
18 or 19.
So pretty
19?
young.
Yeah.
So here's what I'm trying to get at, though. Where are you getting your fucking information from? Books? Were there videos around back then? Did you have a real English mentor? You mentioned Benny Catron, but he's in the Western world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So who helped you? If you had 2 students that won a world, that doesn't just drop out of the air. Somebody has to be teaching you or gave you the knowledge, or did you come up with a lot of this stuff yourself?
I was I had a really good foundation.
Okay.
When I was taking lessons and through Pony Club, I had a very strong foundation. And then
From those lessons that like your mother got you when you were
Correct.
8.
Yeah. And then I think I watched a lot. When I wanted to learn showmanship, to teach somebody showmanship, I videoed it, the people who were winning. And I didn't really have a mentor at that time yet.
Were other trainers receptive to helping you, Jason? Would they talk about training techniques? Would they help a young guy coming up in the ranks, or not really? Was everything pretty secretive?
At that point, I would say no. The jumping industry for the quarter horses wasn't that strong of an industry anyway, so
Yeah.
we kind of had our own little circle of people.
Yeah.
And honestly, the reason that Charlie and I ever even crossed paths is that's the first year that they started the split combined for the quarter horses. So they would take 2 arenas instead of having every event in one arena. They started taking 2 arenas and putting the Western in one, the English in one. And so he had started his business and he was doing the Western and I was doing the English, but we both had a few customers that did both.
Okay.
So we started stabling next to each other, and I would help his people in the English events and he would help my people in the Western
So that's how the
event.
first connection really happened between
Correct.
you two, because that's what I'm trying to figure
Yeah.
out. How did you try to figure out, hey, we could be a great business
Yeah.
entity and do some real good here? So when you were how old when your students won the world then?
It was 87.
So 20?
Yeah,
No,
19.
Our last year of youth was 87.
Okay.
And we competed against each other when we had met.
Are you
You know
roughly
what?
to the
It
same
was-
age?
We're the same age.
It was
How
80
old are you if you don't
I think it was
mind?
88.
It was
actually.
89.
How old are you?
It was 89.
55.
55 and I'm 48.
Yeah.
Okay, so you guys are the same. So you actually competed against each other in youth.
1 year.
One
We
year.
met December of 86 and we competed against each other in 87.
Yeah.
So those students winning the
It
world.
was 89.
89.
Yeah.
Okay. Those students winning the world, was that a big jump for you in your career? Like, did that give you some clout? Did it help you get better customers? Like, did that do anything to really jump you up from driving around in your,
Yeah.
what'd you call the mobile? What'd you call it? The Jason Martin mobile or whatever you called it?
Riding Academy.
Riding
Jason,
Academy.
yeah.
What got you from driving around? I'm trying to pin this together now. From driving around in a car, being broke, giving lessons, to that, or what was the big move that gave you some confidence that you could really do this on a national scale?
Yeah. Well, so 87 was my youth year. In 88, I bought a jumping horse from a hunter jumper trainer. Because at that point, I was braiding some horses at the hunter jumper shows to earn some money. And I bought this $2,000 horse that I made $200 a month payments on.
Mm-hmm.
And I was an amateur. I showed a little bit as an amateur in some of the English events. And then I went to the world that year and I won the world in the jumpers.
Okay.
So that was really the first time I kind of got on the radar in that industry. And then the next years I took the 2 kids to the youth world.
So when you won that world, did you get better customers out of it? Did you get better horses? Did it do anything to kind of skyrocket your career a little bit, or mainly your own personal confidence? What did it do for you, if anything?
I think it just gave me some credibility. I just kind of, my name was just started to get out there, and I had a really good horse. And it was the first year the AQHA ever live televised the world show.
Yep.
So I got a little bit of push from that as well.
Okay.
So
Did you have your own barn by this stage, Jason?
No.
No? Still driving around giving
yeah,
lessons?
yeah. I borrowed a truck, borrowed a trailer, went to the world show. I had a jar at the feed store to collect money to help sending me to the world show.
That's awesome.
And so
See, to me, these are important parts of the story, because people like to see people at the end of their careers when they're successful, they've made a lot of money, and young people, I think, are fucking delusional about what you have to do to get there.
Yeah.
You were braiding mains,
yeah.
correct?
Correct,
For
yeah.
money.
Yeah.
You were making a $200 a month payment on a $2,000 horse because you were broke, correct?
Yeah, correct.
You're driving around giving lessons, and if I had to guess, what, $20 a lesson, 25 maybe?
Maybe.
You know what I'm trying to
Yeah.
say? So I think it's in perspective that people understand you have to start somewhere.
Right.
It was the worst car ever, too.
Now we're getting somewhere.
Volks,
It was
remember that
yeah.
little Volks? What was it you drove?
I paid $1,000 for
It
it.
was a $1,000 car for sure. It was the worst car.
That's awesome. I tell you what, your ranch overhead was real low, wasn't it?
It was low. It was low.
You probably spent more money on the damn car getting it fixed than what you did on anything else.
Yeah.
Are you tired of worrying about the safety and comfort of your horses and livestock while you're on the road? Look no further than Oklahoma Trailer Ranch, the premier choice for hauling your precious cargo with unmatched reliability. Don't settle for anything less than the best when it comes to your trailers. For all your horse trailer needs, stock trailers, living quarters, contact Jason Ducharme at the Oklahoma Trailer Ranch, where we sell Elite, Logan, and Galleon products for any of your hauling needs. Mention Clinton's Uncut Real and Raw podcast and get the very best pricing. Jason will not be undersold by any dealer. Call him now at 248-459-2010. And remember, Jason Ducharme will not be undersold.
So Charlie, where you were raised? Where did you grow up?
I was actually born and raised in Southern California, Orange County. Not from a horse family either. My real father, who I'm close to, was from a ranching family in Texas, or cattle farm, dairy, sorry.
Yeah.
But that wasn't part of my life at that time. So I grew up.
So basically city kid, just like
City
Jason.
kid, yep. My sister kind of wanted a horse, so we kind of moved out to this little community. But what for me was, we went to a summer camp. There was also a boarding school and a college. And when I was 9, 10, 11, I would spend the whole summer at this camp, and it was called Rawhide. It was all Western based. It's the Chown family. And I would go there. I just loved it there. So that's where I really probably got hooked with horses.
Yep. You just love being around them?
I loved being around
them? It was
them.
just a draw to them?
Yeah, I kind of feel like horses are my safe zone,
Yep.
safe spot.
Yep.
So when I was 12, I did not really probably love school or where my life at that time.
Yeah.
So I asked my family if I could go to boarding school.
Okay.
And so I left, went to the boarding school at 12. I loved it. I was one of 2 kids out of like 30 that wanted to be there. But I would go to school half a day in a one-room schoolhouse, and then I got to ride horses all afternoon.
Well,
And
where'd you get to ride horses at?
it was a Western, like it was a college and a boarding school, and they had a whole broodmare band that you rode.
Oh,
and they
truly?
raised. You know who Robert Chown is?
I've heard of him. Yeah,
So
well, Robert Chan in Gainesville, but
Yeah.
our horse trainer.
He was my best friend growing up.
Was he? I know
And that's
Robert,
where I went to
yeah.
boarding school, and that's where he took me on his
So you
wing,
and
his
Robert
dad.
are basically the same age. You grew up doing this together.
He's 2 years older.
Okay.
He took me on his wing. His dad is who taught me how to ride.
Yep.
His older brother was actually my family's horse trainer in the pleasure horse world. So I tried a little bit of everything at that point, but I actually really just rode those. I didn't show much as a kid. I showed the year I was 14, and I showed again when I was 18.
Showed in what, though?
I did the Western pleasure. That's all I thought. That's all I liked. But like with Robert, I would do the cow. Help him turn back and do all that when I was at school. I really loved school. It was a good escape for me, and just being around the animals is what I love.
So half a day academics, half a day with the horses. So in your mind, you were in heaven at that point.
I was pretty much in heaven.
Yeah, it was a great place to be, etc. Were your parents supportive of you going to boarding school?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Because that's a young age. Like you said, most of these kids were probably made to go there by their parents, correct? You said you were only one of 2 that wanted to go there.
Yeah, I definitely was. Me and my little friend Jody, she wanted to be there. But I don't know. I think my mom knew that I actually didn't really like my stepfather.
Yeah.
Probably is why I didn't want to live at home.
Yeah, fair enough.
I have a great dad, but he lived close to me, but I didn't live with him.
Yeah.
So that was just the place I was happiest. And so yeah, they allowed me to do that. So I stayed there for 4 years.
Yep.
But then I knew I literally I would go on my summer break, I'd go work at any horse show for any horse trainer I could for free, whatever I could do to be around the horses. And I loved the horse show classes. So at 16,
So you're cleaning stalls, you're braiding manes,
whatever
what are
I
you
had
doing?
to, sleep in the tack room, I didn't care.
See, this is important. People need to hear this. You said a key word. You do whatever the hell it took to get around them.
Yep. And I wanted to be around the best trainer. So actually Tommy Mannion was my idol.
Oh, yes.
When I was a kid.
Yes.
One of my few idols, but he was. So at 16, I actually I finished my sophomore year, and I told my family I was quitting school.
What did they say?
I think they they weren't thrilled, but I did well in school, and I told them they knew, like, this is what he's gonna do. Like, he's gonna go do the horse thing, and this is what he loves, and this is what, I don't know, they didn't tell me no. So I did. I quit school and went to work the next day when I was 16. I went to work for a trainer named Doug Lilly.
Okay, and in the pleasure horse industry, because that's where Doug comes from, isn't it?
Yep.
The pleasure horse industry.
He was in California at that time, and my mother actually had a horse in training with him.
Okay,
So
but
that
I
was
thought
the
you said
connection.
your parents weren't horse people. Or
My mother and my sister ended up being show horse people.
after you got into it?
No, they actually were before.
Okay.
Like I would go, when I was 9, 10, 11, like if I was home, my sister would rode buckskin. She would go to the shows. My mom actually got a pleasure horse then. She was with Tom Chown. But I wasn't that into it.
Yeah.
Until I was like 13, 14, but I was at boarding school now. And so I would show what I could, but mostly I just, they showed. And so I didn't show a lot as a kid.
So tell me, when you went to work for Doug Lilly, was he in the prime of his career then? Was he one of the big names? Where was he in his career?
He was for
Why did you
sure-
pick him, I suppose, is what I'm asking.
He was for sure the biggest, especially, well, he was the biggest name in the country pretty much at that time, or one of the biggest.
Yeah. What year would this have been, mate?
That would have been, I worked for him in 1986.
Okay.
Into 85, 86.
Yep.
and he was in California, but he actually left California after I probably worked for him 8 or 9 months, and he went to Texas, right by where I live now. And I didn't go when they went. Actually, I wasn't asked to go. I stayed.
Yep.
In California.
To do what? Stay on the same ranch? Start your
No,
own
I
business?
just had to go get another job. I went and
Yep.
I actually laid carpet for 3 months, which is the worst 3 months of my life. But I appreciate it. And then actually
Makes you appreciate the horses a little more.
right. And then actually Troy Compton called me and he said, "Hey, we need you." And so I think I moved.
So was Troy working for Doug Lilly at the time?
Yes, Troy was
Okay.
there when I started working for him. Troy was already there.
Okay.
Troy actually showed my mother's horse, so there was quite a few connections there.
Yeah.
And so I think I just turned 17, and I went in April of that year, which would have been '86. I went to Texas, just drove my little green truck out there.
And
went to work.
you had met Jason by this?
We hadn't yet.
Okay, right. So didn't know who each other were. Okay.
Nope.
So you moved to Texas, and what happens then?
I worked there from April to October.
Tell me, what were you doing for Doug Lilly? Like, give the viewers a bit of an understanding of where you started. Like, what were you doing? Were you cleaning stalls? Were you starting colts? What were you doing for your first professional job with Doug Lilly?
I was saddling a lot. I was riding some. I started the 2-year-olds, which is actually why I quit.
You didn't like that?
I did like starting 2-year-olds, but I had grown up in a way where you started them like this long, lengthy process of ground driving them and doing all that stuff, and that was not what Doug had me do.
Yes.
And so it was a shock to my system.
Yes, I agree.
And I started 3 2-year-olds that year, and I went to my first Congress, came home, started 3 2-year-olds. For like 2 weeks I did it, and I was like, I can't do it. I walked in the office.
Did you think it was dangerous, just to be perfectly honest? Not doing it the way you wanted, do you think there was holes there? And I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but I can relate to this, because how I learned to start colts, I still do today. But when I had to veer from that when I was a young man in different jobs, it felt dangerous to me, because there was too many holes there. I was skipping too many steps and wasn't being thorough enough. What made you not like it? Was there holes there? Did you think it was too fast, too slow?
It was for sure way too fast for me, too many holes, and just we really weren't. It didn't feel like what it was best for the horse.
Felt more like a production line,
Yeah.
like you had to get so many worked a day, etc.
Yeah, and it was just too much. Pull them in the pasture, saddle them, and
Yes,
it was
and go.
too much for me.
I could relate to that 100%, because when I was from 15 to 17, I worked for free for 2 years. But it wasn't free. I make a lot of money from it now.
Yeah.
He was paying me millions. I just didn't know it. But all I wanted when I was 15 was a place to sleep and horses to work with. But I worked for free, but really it wasn't free as experience. But what I loved about it is I only had 6 colts a day to work. So I could spend the time with them. I could spend 2 hours with each horse. I could spend 2.5, whatever it took. And the next job I had, I really had to run through a lot more numbers, so I can relate to this story. It bothered me because I didn't feel like I was being thorough. I was skipping too many steps. I got bucked off more in that next job in 6 months off colts than what I did in 2 years working for Gordon with some of the rankest motherfucking horses in the world. Like, these horses become 5-6-year-old like deer. They come on cattle trucks, no halters, nothing on them. They'd run them off a truck like wild cattle. They'd leap off a truck into a round pen. So they're not halter broke, nothing. So these are wild horses. In that 2 years of starting those type of wild horses, I think I got bucked off 1 horse in 2 years. The next job where I had to run through them quickly, I got bucked off probably 20 times in 6 months. Point in case. So I can very much relate to this story. I felt unsafe, and I felt like there was too many holes. We're moving too quickly. And in turn, I got bucked off a lot. Do you know why I got bucked off a lot? Because I couldn't ride bucking horses. You know why I couldn't ride bucking horses? Because I never fucking practiced. I thought the goal was not to get bucked off. You get what I'm trying to say? So you get good at whatever you practice. Right. So I can very much relate to this. That's why I'm digging into it a little bit, is what you found. You found the production line didn't work for you. Yeah. Okay, that's an important thing. So you've moved to Texas at this point, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, and are you still doing 2-year-olds? You moving on to show horses?
No, now I leave Texas and I get a job with a guy named Tim Whitney, who was in a wheelchair. Okay. Who'd been in an accident many years ago, but he had the best show horses in California, besides Doug, but he had more kids and more Western riding and trail, which I'd never done. Mm-hmm. And his employee before me was someone who I'd really watched and always wanted to be like. His name was Curtis Slayton. I always wanted to be like Curtis Slayton. Okay. and
He had a lot of talent. Why
just
did you
a
like
beautiful showman.
Yep.
Horses presented perfectly, and did those other events that always interested me, but I was never exposed to. I was a Western pleasure kid.
Okay. And that's all you did is Western pleasure?
That's all I had done.
Right. So
And
you had a
then-
kind of craving for knowledge in some other industry, other
Yeah.
disciplines, correct?
And I've learned that for me, 15 minutes of going around in a circle and I'm bored.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm still that way. It's still
Yes.
hard for me to practice
Yeah.
the same thing for 15 minutes. But anyway, so I get a job with Tim Whitney, and he agrees to give me a youth horse for my last year of showing youth, which was in 1987. So I drive out there, I move in there, I start.
Where is he?
He's in Carpinteria, which is up by Santa Barbara. Beautiful
Okay.
area.
Right. So you moved back to California.
I moved back to California. Now I'm got my job.
Does he have a nice ranch? Nice place to work
One of the
out
most beautiful ranches in California.
Okay.
It was,
Did he have good horses?
he had great horses.
How did he get them? Did he breed them? Did
He was
buy
an
'em?
amazing eye and talent, and he could pick horses. And he would get his clients to buy great horses from all over the country, and he was really good at matching horse and rider, and he was really good at lessons. So he would sit there and like give his clients or give me or eventually Jason lessons on, and just could really see things that most people couldn't see.
And he's in a wheelchair, mind you.
He's in a wheelchair. He would like drive up in his little chair, sit there and watch you for an hour.
Yep.
And he was hard. He actually wasn't that, he was a tough person to
Yep,
work for
yep.
mentally. I learned a lot working for him, and I actually learned a lot about compassion, and it's one of the best things I ever did was working
Yeah.
for him. But he got me a horse.
How did he get so, no disrespect or ignorance on my part, but how did he get so good when he was in a wheelchair? Was he a horseman before he had an accident?
Said he was. I never saw him ride, but they said he was one of the best showmen in California in the 70s.
Yep.
He won all the major open show circuit awards. He had amazing horses. He came from a wealthy family, so I think he had
Some means,
opportunities.
yep.
Yeah. But he was quite a quite a talent. I mean, Carol Metcalf worked for him. Vicky Holt worked for him. Jason and I both worked for him. A ton of people went through his program, and then he just was really good at.
So
taking
not
horse.
only by the sounds of it was he good training a horse, he could be good teaching lessons, etc.
Excellent teacher.
Excellent.
He's an excellent teacher. Yeah.
You know, when did you guys ever listen to the Tommy Mannion podcast we did?
I did.
You know, Tommy said that he would always go to California because they were ahead of everybody else to buy his horses. And I asked him why, and he just said you guys were just 10 years ahead of everybody else. The polish on them, the look of them, the finishedness, like that's where they went for their high-end horses.
Yeah. The open circuit in California, which is where Tim and even I got a little bit of a start, they had the best presented horses, and just like Tommy, he would come out. I can think of 5 horses he bought out there that I remember when I was a little kid.
Yeah, yeah. Were the Californians in that time, were they breeding these good horses? Where were they getting them from? Obviously they were training them out there, but where'd the raw stock come from?
Well, I know a lot came off the track that I knew, but that's a terrific question. There was a pretty good breeding program out there.
There were some big ranches, but in the 70s, the open shows in California were huge. Lots of money. There'd be kids that have 5 horses. You know, it was a very
Again, open shows. We're talking about pleasure. All those events you just mentioned.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a very big circuit in the 70s.
And this
early
is well
80s.
before any sort of specialization, correct?
Well before, yeah.
Yeah, well before. Okay, so you're working for this guy. How long did that job last?
Let
Tim,
me backtrack a little. He gave me a horse to show, and
That's when you were a youth, correct?
Yep. And I did not like the horse. I knew after 2 weeks that this horse was not going to fit me. And
What did you not like about it?
she just was probably a little too edgy for me. She had a little bit more of an English look for me, and I wanted a really good Western Rhine trail horse. I felt like that was the direction I wanted to go.
Yep.
And so Tim and I talked, and he's like, "Oh, I got someone who might be interested." And so a trainer named Phil Harris, she showed up with her customer, Jason Martin.
Okay.
And he tried the horse out and bought the horse that I didn't like. That was the day we met.
Okay. So you were buying it for your customer, or you were?
No,
It's his last year youth.
Oh, your last
It's his
year
youth horse.
Okay. So you bought the horse for you to ride, correct?
Yeah, my mom took, she was a school teacher, and it was, her and my dad kind of went sideways, and she took out a loan, a credit line of credit from her teachers, and she said she'd buy me this horse. So I was buying the horse if I liked it or not. I was buying this
So
horse.
you dumped your piece of shit on your buddy.
Well, it just didn't-
Let's just
pretty
be
much.
honest about what happened here, okay?
I
He
don't
fucked
write
you right off the bat. Let's just be honest about
and
it.
I didn't know any different.
I don't write English.
I
She
was-
wrote English.
I was buying this horse.
she
I'm
was a
just
little bit
messing
middle.
with you.
I'm not a fan. So I got a new horse, and then we proceeded to compete against each other for our last year of youth. That's what we did. It was him or I.
Yeah.
All year.
Did you get along with this mare?
I did, yeah. I did pretty well.
Both of you. So what did you end up showing then?
I ended up with a really cool gelding that did the trail in Western riding, and he fit me perfectly. I did the horse with Jip the Pleasure. It worked out
So
perfect.
this gentleman, Tim, was he the one that showed you the skills for the Western riding, the trail, and the stuff you wanted to learn? Remember how you said from Doug Lilly you wanted to branch outside of just pleasure and get it? Who taught you those skill sets to do those other events?
100% Tim. Like he put me on. He had the best trail horses probably in the country at that, or one of the best. Cynthia probably had the other ones, but he put me on some of the best trail horses to this day that I've still ridden. Were at Tim Whitney. So he's the one that taught me the Western riding and the trail.
Is he still alive?
No, he passed away probably 10 years ago.
Yep. Did he have a very successful business?
Super successful, yes.
Yep.
He had a really good client.
Even though he was in a wheelchair, he still just rocked along and kept moving.
Yep.
It's friggin' awesome. Okay. So that's how you two met. You sold him your shitty horse. You and him
Pretty much.
competed against each other for a whole year.
We did not get along at all.
It gets better too because I got fired after a year.
Okay. How'd you get fired?
Guess who moved in and
Take a fucking drink,
took my
stop being a
job?
pussy, and tell us how you got fired.
He took my job.
Okay, but how'd
I
you
just
get
got let
fired? What did
go.
you fuck up?
I honestly
Charlie,
don't know.
come on, you fuck something up.
I honestly don't. I didn't really screw up. I got a horse qualified for the world show. I kind of pushed. I wanted to show it. He didn't really let me show it, and then one day he said, "I'm going to let you go." And so I was there a year, and he let me go, and then he moved in.
You fucking
got the
moved
job.
in. Took
Yeah.
his shitty horse and then took his shitty job.
Yeah.
I didn't last long there at all, though.
So what happened? How come you didn't last long?
Well, turns out I was only there until I think Carol came after me.
Metcalf was before you,
Oh,
before us
then-
both. I was I don't know who came after you. I don't know her name.
Oh, I don't know. Anyway, I was only there like 3 months.
Okay. Did you like it? Did you not like it?
I did like it, and then he told me that he had hired somebody else.
So you're fired too.
On Christmas-
So both of you assholes are out of a job now.
I went home. I was getting ready to leave for Christmas, pulled out the driveway, and he said, "I don't need to come back."
He really broke the news softly, didn't
Yeah.
he?
Really nice.
So
Yeah.
when you got fired, what did you do for money? Where'd you go?
I went back and lived at my dad's house for a few months. I guess that's when I laid carpet.
Okay.
And then what did I do? Then I worked a little bit, but then actually Tim rehired me.
Okay.
And I worked for another year for Tim in 1989.
What did
90.
he say? How did that conversation go when he said, "I want to
You
retire"?
have to. He did not have the most pleasant personality most.
So
of
he
the
didn't
time.
have people skills. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
I don't think he did. You. What do you want to do?
He was, he came from a very wealthy, entitled person.
Yeah.
That
So when he needed to turn on the charm, he could, and when he didn't, he didn't.
Yeah, pretty much.
But it was worth it because you got to
Because he was so
ride
knowledgeable.
such good horses, and he
Yeah.
was knowledgeable.
So you were happy to go back there and getting the impression.
I did. I actually I went for another year, and then by then I had a couple clients that I knew wanted to be just my clients.
So
and
when you
that's
go
I
back
left.
there, just stop a little second. When you go back there for the second time, are you just doing grunt work, or are you really in the arena every day training these horses? You know, what are you doing for it?
I'm his trainer.
You're his
So you're a trainer. You coach. You show the customers horses. You give lessons. He gives most of the lessons. But then now I am the main vehicle that presents the horses, and it was really a great year.
Yeah. How old are you now?
I am 20 years old.
Okay, pretty young still.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you got fired, where did you go, Jason?
I think that's when I started the riding academy.
Again, out of the fucking minivan. So you started the
Yeah.
minivan up and you
Yeah.
start hauling ass again
I think so. I probably went back to college a little bit.
for the fourth time or
Probably,
third time?
probably. I did the horse judging, so I had to stay in it long enough to finish the judging season, and then I would quit.
Okay. Now, as youth, you two didn't get along, correct? You were pretty competitive against each other?
That's pretty correct.
That's pretty. Stop being a pussy. Say you fucking hated him. That's what you really wanted to say.
Well,
You
I
said-
was probably jealous of him because he actually won when he won the world in '88.
Yeah.
I was pretty like, I can't believe he
This
freaking
motherfucker
won the
beat me.
world before
on the
I did.
shitty horse that I sold him.
Yeah.
No,
Did
it
he
was
win it on
It
the
was
shitty
a different horse,
No.
thank God.
Okay.
But so there was a little bit of that, and there was probably some other things that played into that, our distance in between us. But we were super competitive, and we did go. You know, we were trying to beat each other.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. Little healthy competition's good. That's awesome. What do you remember from these days? I've heard his version.
Well, my time at Tim Whitney's is very short. I did not like him as much as Charlie when I
Yeah.
when
Were
I
you doing
left.
grunt work? Were you
I was
training
doing grunt.
horses?
I was doing grunt work. I think I was just hired there for an interim
Yeah.
spot, and
Yeah.
then when the new trainer came, I was gone.
You were gone.
Yeah.
Right. Did you notice a quality stock? Was he big into English or mainly the Western events?
Western.
So there wasn't much English there for you then.
No, but I learned a lot. You know, like
Tell us what you learned, seriously.
he was an expert at the trail.
What made him, so you both have said that a couple of times now. What did he do that was kicking everybody's ass?
I think he started with really good quality horses, and back in that day, the trail was different than it is now. They had, you know, you went through tires and bridges that rocked and water boxes that shot up water, and so those horses were super duper broke, and they had an entire division in the open circuit that was just trail. So you have 3-year-old trail, 4-year-old trail, 5-year-old trail, you know, all these different divisions for the riders, and so trail was a huge part of that industry at the time. So
Popular sport. Women into it, men into it, everybody.
yeah, and so that's especially like in the beginning years, you know, you go to the youth world and 10 out of the top 15 were California trail kids.
Okay.
Because they were just that much ahead
Yeah.
of the rest of the country.
Okay. So did these horses, you know, obviously had better stock. What about a look or a training style? What did he ride them? Did you ride them twice a day, 6 days a week? Tell us about the training program of that trainer. What made his horses so much broker, Charlie, than everybody else's?
Well, you know, the open show circuit was Rommel style.
Okay,
And
so
so he
everything's
rode
Rommel.
everything more collected, more gathered.
Yep.
I think more engaged than you would see, say, on the East Coast
Yep.
at that time. And so we could do things, even when Jason and I went to the World Show the first many times, we were so far ahead of everyone else because we were doing the obstacles advanced way before the rest of the country. And so Tim would set up stuff, he didn't set it up obviously, but he would have us set up stuff
Yeah.
that by today's standard, people they wouldn't even believe what we were doing back then.
So you think it was tougher back then?
Oh, it was so much harder. Now it's just who can lope through it and who can trot through it the prettiest.
Right.
There's hardly any technical stuff yet left, but like walking through 8 tires in a row where they have to put a foot in each tire, and then over a teetering bridge and jumping jumps, and I mean, it was honestly, it was way harder then, but the horses were way more engaged in it in a way. Like
They would have had to be. Let's just think,
Yeah.
for example, to get a horse to walk through 8 tires and never touch a tire.
Yeah.
That some bitch better be paying attention, hadn't he?
Yeah.
So let me ask you, what made it go from that hard and technical to what it is today? And I'm not saying it's easy today, but what made it get easier over time? Why didn't it stay technical? Do you know?
Well, sadly, and they've slowly, you know, animal welfare is important, but they've taken away so many obstacles. They took away tires because you can have a big wreck in a tire.
Yeah.
They took away rocking bridges because you can.
You mean
have
the
a wreck.
teeter-totter?
Yeah, teeter-totter. So they just kept taking things away. AQHA rules did, or whoever were making the rules kept taking stuff away. The open show circuit actually didn't, but that circuit died.
Why did it
doesn't
die? If it
exist.
was so popular, why'd that open circuit die in California?
Unfortunately, people kept moving towards the breed shows because I think they did a better job of probably tracking points and having a record.
So back in these days in these open shows, you might be riding an Arab, so to speak, and you could be riding a quarter horse, and Bob over here could be riding an Appaloosa, correct? And was that what you'd see in those open shows?
There were some Arabs that we had to compete against that they were hard to beat.
Truly.
But the quarter horses, in my opinion, were the ultimate best.
Yes.
But for sure, you didn't know what was coming in next in the gate. But I think that's why people drove
So do you
away.
think the start of the breed associations was the start of the specialization? That was the very start of where everything started to separate into obviously breeds and then disciplines, or not really?
I think it was the split combines that had a lot to do, don't you?
Probably.
When they started separating the shows to where you were in multiple arenas at once, I think people had to choose, like, even us, Jason is one of the best hunter riders ever in our industry. But at some point about 10, 12 years ago, we had to pick, like, what arena we're going to be at.
Yeah.
And we finally had to give up the whole hunter portion of our barn, which is a huge part of our barn, and we had to give that up. So we haven't had hunters in a decade. And I think a lot of people had to make those choices. What arena are you going to really focus on? And we bucked that system as long as we could, but that was the one thing we finally gave up, was the hunter pen.
So tell me, and digging into this Tim guy a little bit better, tell me about the training program. Were you only expected to ride 8 horses a day? Could you give the horses the quality that you really wanted? You said at Doug's place that you felt like you were a little bit of a factory, moving through them too quickly. Tell us about Tim. Did he let you ride them long enough to get them broke? Was 8 horses a day a big day? 15? Tell us about the training process of these horses.
Tim's was definitely not that factory feeling. That's probably why I did like it so much. It was 8 to maybe 10 a day,
Yep.
just somewhere in there, and
Yep.
you took your time. It was a much more low intensity training.
Yep.
And Tim would sit there and watch you, and you rode until he told you you were done. With Doug, you got on, you had a list to do, and you
had to get the list
You
done.
hardly even saw it. Half time we didn't see him.
Yeah. So
Get the lunch
at
done.
Tim's, I'm assuming one's a jackass and you need to ride it again. You can get it out again. Like you gave it what it needed. If a young horse needed more attention, you could give it. Correct?
Yep.
Well, and I think Tim, he was phenomenal at buying great horses, and
He had an eye for conformation.
just quality.
Yeah.
And I think also he had a lot of wealthy clients. He bought really nice horses for them, and
Matched him well. Was he a good matcher?
very well.
Yeah.
And he also gave, the clients rode every day, or they had their lessons. So it was kind of a different format than the Doug Lilly time where the trainers get the horse ready, the client sits on the horse, goes around, gets off. Tim was at that time where, because they had to, all the clients rode. And so they all took lessons.
So were they riding young horses or finished horses?
I would say more finished horse, a lot of them. But he had
a couple young ones, but
he had the Blecker daughters, who there's 3 girls, Trisha, Marcia, and Lala, who kind of also ended up kind of riding and showing and training a lot of his horses later on. But
That makes sense, because let's be honest,
great
you
riders.
couldn't put a lot of customers on a lot of 2-year-old and 3-year-olds, 4 or 5 days a week and still think they're going to make a lot of progress. So that's why I'm asking. This Tim guy's buying more finished senior horses that know their job as a general rule.
I think he'd buy a lot of nice pleasure horses and teach them to do the trail. And I think he also always had a few futurity horses himself that a customer might own. But from when I was there, he gave a lot of lessons, and the people learned how to ride themselves.
Right.
So they were troubleshooting themselves, which I think was kind of before its time.
And he was a very good teacher, you said?
Really good.
Who was his mentor? Where'd he get his shit from?
I have no idea.
I actually don't either.
Okay.
That was, maybe way back in the days.
Because that open circuit was just dying basically when we started.
Okay, it was just
So,
going.
yeah.
Okay. So if you had to paraphrase, he had a hell of an eye for a horse. He could match up a client with the right horse, which is really an art within itself, isn't it? A good horse for you may not be a good horse for Betty. You know what I mean? So anything else that you could say, he didn't have the best people skills, but what other asset, if you could grab something from his horsemanship bucket, what else did you two grab while you were there and put in your own bucket?
And somebody is in a wheelchair, and he was quadriplegic. I mean, he had very little use of his hands. I think they see things different. I mean, their senses are different. I mean, he's going to pick detail. His equitation riders won those stock classes over and over again because, I think a lot of trainers, they're also riding. They have a lot on their plate. He sat in that wheelchair all day long up under his umbrella, and he gave lessons, and he would pick out the tiniest of details that I think 95% of trainers wouldn't spend the time
to fix.
to do that.
Yeah.
And I think that's also, so even though he's in a wheelchair, that's also set him apart for being such a horseman that he was.
And you guys kind of took that and added it to your own businesses?
I think a lot, like even what we're talking about, a lot of it is how we rolled into our own training program and how we treat our customers, or how we teach our customers to ride, and they better want to ride.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to take a little break here, freshen up some cocktails. I want to pick back up of when that job ended, where we are from there. You know what I mean? You competed against each other, highly competitive, but basically from when you left that job, we'll pick it back up and where we went on the career.
Okay.
Cheers. Let's get a drink.
Want to get your brand noticed? Advertising opportunities now available, including title sponsorship and episode sponsorships. The Uncut and Real Raw podcast is among the top 1% of podcasts in the nation, with nearly 1 million downloads. Join our winning team and come along for the ride. Email social@uncutandrealraw.com for more information.
See Clinton Anderson and his Down Under horsemanship method live. Order tickets now for the Walkabout Tour, July 27th and 28th in Rancho Murrieta, California. For ticket information and a full list of upcoming tour dates and locations, visit downunderhorsemanship.com.
So, Charlie, I wanted to ask you, and actually both of you for that matter, before we move on to this next chapter, what we talked about things you learnt that was positive. Let's talk about things that you learnt that maybe are negative, meaning that you learnt that you didn't want to do. So one example is you didn't want a production line. You learnt that you didn't want to have so many horses to train that you couldn't do a good job on them. Was there any other life lessons, and you guys are young, you're 18, 19 at this point, what other lessons are you learning about the horse industry that you think stuck with you that you didn't want to do or didn't want to replicate?
Well,
go ahead.
For me, I worked for a couple of horse trainers that they were really big and flashy, and they had great horses, but that's all they really had. They wanted to have the fanciest trailer, and you know, this lifestyle that was really excessive, but they didn't have anything in the bank. They didn't own anything, and I would watch that, and I sadly watched both of them die broke.
Yes.
And they were only not much older than I am right now.
Yeah.
And I always knew, for some reason, I just told myself when I started my business, I wasn't going to die a broke horse trainer.
Yeah.
And so for me, those were the lessons. I didn't want the fanciest truck and trailer.
You think they lived outside of their means?
They did, and they didn't have very much skills at managing their money and those kind of things. So for me, I never wanted to be that person. I wanted to have a retirement and have a life throughout that. And I know Jason was this similar.
I think we've learned most of our lessons from other people.
Yes.
You know, especially the bad. I was, hindsight, fortunate that one of my really good friends in high school, her parents were as top of the line in the open circuit as they could be. And now in high school, when I met them, they were divorced, and her father had slept with one of his students, so that got rid of half of their clientele. And so I learned that lesson.
Yeah,
you know?
Don't fuck your clients. Yeah, I'd like to say I haven't made that mistake, but I have. Yeah, anyway, fuck. Let's move on, boys. Okay.
And
nervous laugh.
The other one was they were high rollers. I mean, she would show me the pictures. She showed up in the horse shows in her furs, and they had a Cadillac that pulled a horse trailer, and they were as high end as you could be. And now when I knew her, she was broke, like dead broke.
Yeah.
And I think what I took out of that is that horse trainers in particular think it's never going to get worse.
Yeah.
So they're making this much money now. They're always going to make that much money, and they're buying the fancy cars and the fur coats and all that, and they just never expect that they're going to lose some clients or something's going to happen. So before I even started my business, that was pretty much etched into me, that how could this person who was the best of the best be broke?
Yes.
And so I think just from the beginning, Charlie and I never bought a truck with the TVs in it and you know, all the fancy things. We always just bought nice things, but we never bought the over the top. And we really never lived outside of our means. And I think that's what I learned early on.
A lot to be said about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot to be said about that. Okay, well, with that moving on, so that second time you got hired by Tim, you were about there a year, correct?
Yeah.
And so at that point, what happens then? How do you start your own business? Where do you two start meeting and forming a business? So what happens then?
I started my own business, I think, when I was 20-ish.
In the Orange County area?
Chino Hills. And had a nice little business going. Jason and I.
But when is Gary and Kelly?
I guess I worked a couple other trainers through that period.
Okay.
They would have been in '88. I worked for them.
Okay. Were they
then I went back to
trainers? What
Tim.
were they?
All-around trainers. Really a great couple, Gary and Kelly Roberts. I worked for them after Tim fired me. Then I laid carpet. Then I went to work for them for a year or so. They'd been friends for a long time.
Yeah.
And then went back to Tim's.
What about Candy?
That was afterwards. I had a couple little small
Okay, get your shit together. I'm trying to fucking interview you. I should be
but
interviewing
basically,
Jason.
by 21, I started my own business. have my own
Jason,
business.
is he lying right now? Or is he telling the fucking
No,
truth?
I guess.
Yeah, that was right. If I'm 21, I have my own
I'm just
business.
fucking with you. Just ignore me. I'll
nothing-
keep drinking. Just ignore me.
Yeah, and he had his business north of me 4 hours. We still weren't friends.
Uh-huh. And you're now competing against each other on an open, like as not as youth.
Correct.
As professional
We're trainers.
racers.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
So do you have a ranch yet? Or are you still in the minivan driving around? What the fuck are you doing?
I'm I got my Volkswagen Rabbit, and I am boarding at a customer's place.
Okay, so you're boarding some horses
Yeah.
at a customer's place, right?
Yeah.
So you're no longer a carny. You're not driving around no more. You've got some stable routes.
Yes.
Ignore me. I'm just messing with you, fella.
but by now we speak to each other. We
Yeah.
compete against each other.
So you're cordial.
That's probably a good way to put it.
Yeah,
right?
motherfucker. Like, hi, how are you? I hope you fucking die in your sleep kind of a deal when you walk off.
Well, and we must have started talking a little bit, but I traded a horse for another horse, and I was so excited about it, and I had told Charlie about it, and he said, that horse is terrible. Yeah. And that horse, I went on to win the world on that horse.
Okay.
And so that must have been in the Western riding.
Okay.
And
So you now got into the Western scene more than the English, or what are you
both.
doing?
I was doing both.
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 How did you learn the Western part? Was that hard, Jason?
You know what
I mean?
I was I'm not saying self-taught, but I took a little bit from all kinds of trainers.
Yes.
Like I got a lot of help from different people, and really none of them were that spectacular at the event, but I was just kind of a sponge.
Fair
and
enough.
I would just take as much information I could from other people. And you know, at that point, Western riding wasn't anywhere near it is today. It wasn't a scored. It was a scored event, but they wasn't scored maneuvers. They would just say, "Oh, that's a 75,"
Okay.
depending on who was on the horse.
Fair
you
enough,
know.
yes.
So we were really fortunate that there became a scoring system at the beginning, maybe a couple years into ours. They finally gave a scoring system, but I bought a horse named Done Some More, and I got appendicitis. So at that time, they started this big new horse show called the Golden Grand, Cow Grand. It's Cow Grand. And I asked Charlie if he would catch ride a couple of my horses for me. And that's kind of the first time that we stabled next to each other.
Okay.
And then from then on, we started stabling next to each other, and I started helping his customers, and he started helping mine.
Okay. So why did you start helping each other's customers? One was busy. What made that kind of a fit there that you'd start helping his customers?
Because that's when they split the arenas.
That's right. Okay. So his customers that wanted to do English, you'd step over and
Yeah.
help, and
Yeah.
Western, that
Yeah.
made sense. So kind of it was a little bit of a business necessity that you realized you had to kind of help each other.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Very good. What year are we talking about now?
That was 92
90
or 91.
91.
We started our business in 92, so we must have started installing together. You're right, in August of 91.
So at this stage, you're still separate, but are you 50-50 English and Western? What are you?
Yeah, probably.
What are you? You're all Western, correct?
No, I had hunters. I just didn't show the English stuff.
Okay.
I had a hunter jumper lady who's still a friend that would show the hunters for me.
Yeah.
But I was probably 80-20.
Okay. And you're leasing a barn somewhere in California?
Yeah, I
your
had a
business?
barn in Chino Hills.
How many horses you got in training?
I started with like 6, and then probably by the time Jason and I put our business together, I was probably at probably 10.
Okay, so small enough to do a lot of personal care on the horses, training, etc. What about you?
And
What
I
numbers?
was in Clovis, and he was in Chino Hills. And when I moved my business to Charlie's, and I probably only had a couple horses that came with me, maybe 4.
Okay. So at what point then, if you two start helping each other's customers and you realize you're an asset to help each other, who came up with the idea and says, okay, we should fucking form a business here together? Or did you keep them separate for a while and just trained out of the same barns?
No, when I
I'm trying to figure out how the merger
When I
came
moved
together.
to Chino Hills, we actually decided to become business partners.
Okay. And for what reason though?
I think it was kind of mutual with us, and our customers also thought it was a good idea.
Okay. Got anything to say about that, Charlie? Anything different?
there was more to it because then I guess we entered a relationship then too.
Okay, righto. So
We're
you
gonna
two are
talk
dating
about
at that
that?
point, and you also want to start.
Sure are.
You're fucking and you want to make money together. Let's just knock it down to what it is, okay? So,
Oh, Jesus.
so you two are fucking and you want to make money, correct?
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. If I could fuck women and make money, I'd be a billionaire. Okay, so I envy you. I really do. Okay, so at that point, okay,
But at that point, he wasn't out.
he wasn't out.
No.
Okay, so you're fucking in the closet. How deep in the closet? Like way back in the 70s shit, or you were near the
Well,
door?
Pretty far
Pretty
back
deep.
in there because through boarding school, it was a Christian boarding school like that I was just think about horses. That's all I thought about. So that was when I was, 18, 19, 20 is when I kind of not realized when I was like, oh, but I was definitely didn't want anyone to know. So when we started, I was definitely the one like, we're not talking about this. We're just going to train horses. We're going to ride these horses and we're going to show these horses.
So let me ask you, in the culture back then, this is what, late 80s, correct? Or early 80s?
Early 90s.
Early 90s. Was it not acceptable to be a gay man in the Western industry? I'm not trying to be ignorant. I'm just asking a question. I don't fucking know.
There weren't any.
There weren't any. I thought you had to be gay to ride a pleasure horse. Like, wasn't that just the culture or it wasn't the culture?
It was
was not.
certainly not, and I don't even think today, if you ask the hardcore pleasure people, that would still not be the way they would think of
yeah.
it. The all-around group and the English group, for sure, it is every other person. The top trainers are gay trainers now.
Okay.
In the all-around part, but if you just say Western pleasure, there's a few scattered through there, but nothing like that. But back when we started, I mean, there was one person that I could think of. He'd already quit by then.
Yeah.
But there was.
So you were out of the closet. You don't get
No,
it.
I wasn't.
You weren't either.
Not at that time.
Not at that time.
Not to my family, or I was
Well,
out to myself,
Yeah, fuck it. Who cares?
but I wasn't out to my family. I remember we were riding in the arena and Charlie's mother called, and she had heard that he was gay from her hairdresser.
those bitches,
and he
those
came-
fucking bitches are always spreading rumors, Charlie.
And he came up to the arena and he was devastated, and that's kind of, I mean, the customers didn't know at that time, and
So when it all came out, did the customers give a fuck or nobody gave a fuck?
Customers did not care 1 ounce.
I'm not
They
surprised
loved
by
us.
that because
Yeah.
you did a good fucking job.
I think there was some, probably some people or judges that didn't really know who we were or didn't appreciate our horses and what we were doing out there.
So
because
you
we
felt
weren't
like
trying-
a little bit of a biased in that respect from judges.
There was, well, we for sure can name an instance
Yeah.
or two.
Yeah.
But for the most part, we just put our heads down and like
I
showed
think
the best horses.
that's why we ended up being as good as we were, because we had to be better
Yes.
than everybody else.
Yes.
Just to be judged somewhat
Yes.
fairly.
Yes.
I mean, we went to the Congress one year, and one of our very first years, and I had a first. There was 3 judges that year. I had a first, a second, and a gate, and Charlie had a second, a third, and a gate. And the male judge told the female judges, he goes, "I don't know what to do with those guys."
Yeah.
Like, so
Yeah.
they just, didn't know what to do with us.
Yeah.
And so,
So you worked harder, put more effort
Yep.
in, fucking got down and dirty, and proved to everybody your
Yeah.
horsemanship and your horses would win.
yeah.
Because ultimately, that's what it's about. Who gives a fuck what people do? My attitude is what people do behind closed doors, I don't give a flying fuck. I really don't. What I care about is what you do with your horses and how you present yourself. So clients didn't give a fuck, a little bit of judgment there, but it might have been actually good because it made you work a little
sure.
harder, Jason.
For sure.
And I don't mean that in a negative way, but
No,
it kind of
I
was
think
in
that's
some ways.
I think that's a big point of, we never flaunted our sexuality
Yes.
ever in
Yes.
public, so they didn't judge us for that.
Yes.
So the only thing they could judge us for is our horsemanship and how well we presented in the arena.
Yes.
And so I think that was just something that made us work harder than we would have worked
Yes.
in different circumstances.
I think that also the people that really knew Jason and Charlie and were watching us and showing against us or around us, like a Troy Compton, had our back.
Yes.
For when the talk would go negative,
Yes.
I think they would be like, no, look at their horses.
Yes.
Look how they're presenting them. Look how nice they are.
Yes.
And so we definitely ended up with a group of people that supported us and were behind us that we probably didn't even know existed a lot of times.
That's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
That's
we
really
really, I think both of us probably wouldn't do it a different way if we did it again.
Yeah, probably
Because
That's a fair analogy. You guys turned a fucking negative into a positive.
And we didn't go out at night and drink, and we didn't go out and party.
You were business.
We were just trying to prove ourselves.
Yeah. So when you first started joining this business now, did it grow quick? Where are you training out of? What barn?
We stayed in Chino Hills, where I started.
Yeah.
From 90, well, I was there 91 to, we were there till 98, 99. We left there and moved to Texas in 2000.
Okay.
And when we left when we were in California, we had clients from quite a bit all over the country already, but our base was California. So we were there 8 years in California.
Okay. So when you guys started the business together, how did you decide what to split? You're obviously English, you're obviously Western. How did that conversation go down, or was there really one about it? How did you divide the horse training? How did you divide who does fucking billing, who does this, who does that? Tell us how some of that went down.
Well, so Jason for sure is the business side of our thing. He runs all the banking, all the money.
The billing.
He handles all the financial side of it, and he's always done an amazing job at that.
Right from the beginning.
Right from the beginning.
Was that a natural strong suit you had, Jason, for that, or just a desire to not get it fucked up?
I don't know.
Okay.
I didn't come from money, so I definitely was frugal with it, and I just paid attention to the details on our finances.
Okay.
And I feel like I was always a little bit more like get down and dirty. So we for sure. Our strengths are each other's weaknesses. We identified that right away. I don't know why, but we did. Riding horses is the same. We shared a ton of horses starting out, where he would show it in the Western riding, I'd show it in the trail, or vice versa. Or I'd ride it for 2 months and I'd be like, I'm not making any progress.
Yeah.
He'd get on. We still do that. We're still doing that today.
That's awesome.
So we figured that out. I don't know why we got so lucky to.
But you see, a lot of horsemen would be too arrogant to do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? One of the greatest stories I ever heard that Bob APHA told me, that the first year that horse Rooster side reining horses, the first year his 3-year-olds went to the reining fraternity, Bob APHA and Donnie Bricker made 2 mares to the open finals, okay? And Bob said, he told me, he said, these 2 mares were just rotten bitches, just rotten fucking bitches. And he said they were so bad, Donnie and I would swap out every week. Because by the end of the week, they'd fucking figure out what you're gonna do, how you're gonna correct them, and they'd start screwing you. And then we'd change riders, and we'd get ahead of them again for another week. He said, literally, we did that for a year. Every Monday, we swapped horses, and they both made the open finals. That's fucking brilliant as a horseman. Yeah. These 2 mares would never have made it. Bob even said, he said, they would not have made the open finals if we would have trained them each individually. But we had different enough training styles, but in the same way, similar enough, it was the same but different, that we could stay ahead of these mares. Just like you said, you rode it for 2 months, you're not making any progress, or you feel like you've come to a stalemate, and you take over.
Yeah, and we've never competed against each other. So, if I can't win, I hope he wins. If I'm riding a horse I'm not getting along with, he rides it. So we don't have any issues, and we never have with.
That's awesome.
Competing against each other, hoping that I want the good horse, he gets the good horse, or whatever. So I think that's important of also what has made us successful is we always try to do what's best for the horse and the customer.
Yes. It reminds me, Ian Francis, my mentor, he was like you guys in the all round, won the Cutting Fraternity 3 times, won the Reining Fraternity in Australia 5 times, did trail, pleasure, all of it. And he has a saying, he says, always put your customers' needs ahead of your own and you'll have a thriving business.
Yep.
Always put your customers' needs ahead of your own, you have a thriving business. So when you guys go out on your own, you basically just open your doors up to all those events that you still did today, theoretically, okay? Did it grow quickly? Was it hard to grow? Were you guys poor, struggling to find groceries? Tell us a little bit about the start.
I don't think we...
Because you show up 2 fucking horses, you got 6. So you some bitches don't have a big barn. You got 8 horses, correct?
we lived in an apartment. We had a 4-horse trailer, and then a customer had a trailer. The nice thing about when you start something organically from the bottom up is you don't realize that you're missing out on things. So we only just kept getting more stuff. We never realized that we were missing out on stuff that like today's generation would expect to have the best saddles, the best this. We were just thrilled every time we stepped to the next level. And so I don't think it never crossed our mind that we didn't have money or that we didn't have the nice things, because then we would get something nicer, and we were just thrilled that we were at that level. And
we were really smart about the horses we bought. We had really good horses to ride, and we're really careful what horses we bought each client. And we always made the horse fit the client, not fit Jason or I, but because we knew it was going to fit one of us.
Yeah.
So we always had really good stock, and we were building good stock.
Do you think you got a lot of those ideas from Tim?
I do. For me personally,
from
yeah.
buying that stock and matching that customer and horse?
Yeah, I would say that if you ask people, one of our best fortes at the time was matching, finding the right horse for the right customer.
Yeah.
And we had really, really good youth kids. And so, you know, it's interesting because at that time, like even the Western riding, all of the top horses in the country were owned by youth kids. And so our youth kids would win the world, we'd win the world. And now today's Western riding, there's not one, maybe one horse in the top 15 that a youth kid owns. It's like the whole industry has now changed to the best horses.
Why has that happened? Why?
I think that the Selects own them now.
The Selects bought all the good
And
horses.
The
now.
old people with all the fucking money.
And you know, and we didn't do youth at the end of our careers. And some of our friends who were really good in the Western riding, they didn't do youth at the end of their careers. But we were lucky with that, and we're also very fortunate living in California, because we would go to the Congress and take all of our clients, and then the World Show was on the way home from the client. So we wouldn't charge them anything if they would let us show at the World Show.
Ah, yeah.
So we got to show all these great horses at the World Show. Now, if we would have had to go home and then bill them to send the horses all the way back to Oklahoma, at least half of them probably would have never let us do that.
That's something I want you to talk about that I don't think a lot of young people understand. When you're first starting out, you've got to cut some deals. You know, I always said sweat's the cheapest thing you can give away because you get it again the next day.
Yeah.
I was so broke in the beginning, I couldn't afford to lose money because I didn't have any. But if I had to train somebody's horse for free to prove that I could do a good job, or prove my worth, or prove my loyalty, I'd do it because my attitude was, I'll get sweat tomorrow. Now, I couldn't afford to ride it for free and feed it and shoe it. You know what I mean?
Right.
But talk a little bit about that, about what you had to do in the beginning to cut some of those deals, because I think you've got to get a foot in the door somewhere.
For sure.
Well, I know we rode, you know, I think at that time we did make some deals. If we knew it was a good horse or we were going to get opportunities, we gave up a lot of commissions.
Yeah.
The best horse we ever bought, well, my most favorite horse, his name was Oscar, and it was we paid the most money at that time our client paid the most money that I'd ever heard of in California, and we didn't make a dime on it.
Yeah.
But that horse paid
Just
us,
because you were trying to make it cheap enough to get it to the customer?
well, we got screwed a little bit on it. We could have fought about it.
Yeah.
But that horse ended up winning more world championships than any horse in AQHA history in performance. And that horse is the horse that put us on the map. And to this day, we still.
But 15 years later, 20 years later, we bought Vital Signs Are Good, which is the greatest mare that ever, and we didn't take a commission too because I wanted the horse.
Yeah.
And it was a ton of money, and even though the customer could afford it, I told him I wouldn't take the commission if he would buy me the horse.
Yes.
And so, and I can't tell you how many trainers will not buy a horse unless they get a commission, even though the very next month they're going to be making money having the horse in training and hauling it down the road, and they're going to pick a less of a horse they make money, and to where we had always made the choice, you know, I'd give up a commission if I got a great horse.
Yes. Because to me, you looked at the bigger picture.
Yeah.
You can't win on a stick horse.
Yeah.
You got to win on a great horse. So whatever you've got to do to get that great horse in your barn is what you're going to do.
Yeah, and the more you win on it, the more shows they're going to want to go to.
Yes.
And that's where we make money, was going to horse shows.
Yeah. Yes.
So we try to always look at the big picture for sure.
Yes. You might have to give up a little bit here, but you gain more down the road. Yeah. You're in California. The business is growing. You're hiring more people. Tell us about you got to hire more hands. You got apprentices. How is it growing from the employee standpoint?
We always had.
You're trying to do it all hands on, no assistants?
No, we hired Vicky Holt right off the bat, pretty much, right?
Yeah, pretty early.
But we always also had the mentality that whoever we hired needs to be of the quality that the customers aren't going to complain if that person helps them. Because we had also learned just from watching and other experiences that, you know, customers are paying for this, and then when the help's riding them, and if the help is not of a certain level or caliber, they're going to complain about it.
Yeah.
So through our whole careers, we always hired, our assistant was always somebody who was a world champion or of that level that maybe didn't want to have their own business, but we never in all of our years had an assistant that our customers, we always consider them another trainer.
Yes.
So we never had one that our other customers would complain if they had to have them at the arena helping them, or if they were the one that was going to show their horse. And I think that was a big benefit to us.
Did you have trouble hiring that particular trainer? Because when I listen to what you're saying, it's a little bit of a niche market. They're much better than a beginner assistant. They're almost ready to go out on their own, but they're not on their own. So you're trying to get people that theoretically have the skill set to be a professional trainer, but they're not working for themselves. You see what I'm saying here? Was that a difficult thing to find, or was it easier than you think?
You have to find somebody who their dream is not to own their own business.
Was that hard?
We were lucky because the people that we had, just with Vicky Holt and Beth Case and Jeff Malott, that's not what they wanted. They wanted to have a stable environment. They still wanted to have their own lives, but they were of the quality that could win the world, and they'd come to work and give us their all.
Do you think those people were very unique, that they realized the stresses that come from your own business? Because I think as apprentices and young trainers, they always think being your own boss is just the greatest thing in the world. I can't wait to have my name on the sign. And when they get their fucking name on the sign, they realize there's a hell of a lot more bullshit to this. You're not just riding horses. Like I would always tell my apprentices, Charlie, I'm going to do two things. I'm going to work your ass off, and you're going to make enough money to put a roof over your head and feed yourself and clothe yourself. But you're not going to make any money. You're making your money when you leave me. But I'd always say to them, value this time, because there's never going to be a time in your life where all you have to do is wake up and learn. You wake up and you train horses all day and you go to bed. This is a very special time. I know you don't think it right now, but this is a very unique time in your life. You don't have mortgages, you don't have car payments, you don't have boyfriends, girlfriends, marriages, fucking kids. You don't have all this other shit that takes up your life. That one day you're going to wake up and you won't be able to train horses. You're going to have to do billing. You're going to have to deal with problems. You're going to have to hire people. You're going to have to fire people. You're going to have to drive a truck. You're going to have to do other shit that goes along with the business. To me, it's very rare to find people that have enough savvy and experience, Jason, to know that it's not all, that grass is not always cracked up, not always greener on the other side.
We definitely had, like Vicky and even Beth, and Jeff, they definitely are that kind of person. They are well aware what it takes to run the whole business, and they don't want that headache responsibility. We also had lots of interns and young trainers through the years, especially in the last, since we've been in Texas.
The last couple we had kind of fit the other category.
So it's been a balance, but
do it on their own.
You're right. People don't, especially the younger ones, don't realize how much BS we have to. How much responsibility and liability we're taking over as trainers. And so that's actually part of the reason why we have reduced our numbers lately, is just to take more off ourselves. But you're right, it was hard to find someone that wants to just stay right there and not move up to the next level. The majority of the young people do want to move up.
And if you don't find that person, then the whole time they're going to resent you because they want what they're not getting. So I think that's also a double-edged sword. You got to make sure you find, because we've had both laid towards the end of our careers, to where some people that's what they want, they're content, and then you have some people that are low resentment because they want it to go out on their own.
My advice to young people is, when you're with the champion of your industry, when you're with the best of the best of what you want to do, whether you're a reining trainer or in your case all round, stay there as long as you can. Learn everything you possibly can. And when you think you've learned it all, stay there another year or two. Because you don't know it all. And make sure that when you leave that job, you leave it better than when you found it. You leave that employer thinking him letting you go was the stupidest thing he ever did. When you walked up and said, hey, I'm going to start my own business, you want to leave with him thinking so positively about you that he regrets daily that he didn't try to keep you. Would you agree with that statement or not?
For sure.
Because how you leave a job, to me, is far more important than how you started it. Because how you leave it is what you're remembered for.
For sure.
So you've got one assistant at this point. You've got how many horses each you ride in a day? 10 a day, 8 a day?
We rode a lot back then, probably 8 to 10 a day a piece.
You're in your early 20s now?
Yeah.
Early 20s, okay. Mainly showing in California or coming back to Texas a lot? Congress, what?
We did the major shows, so we do the Congress, we would do Florida, the Red Bud, Dixie Nationals, Houston Livestock Show.
Mostly the California circuit. Then we'd try to each year we'd graduate, go out a little further, but always the Congress and the World Show. So
How important were those shows to finding new customers?
our base, I think it exposed us to new clients. That's how we got some great horses from other parts of the country, because we were excelling so well at the trail and the Western riding. And we fortunately got some great horses because they saw us at those big shows and they sent them to us in California.
That's awesome. Really good. So you're just rocking along for a few years now. Was success hard to get in the beginning? Did it come kind of quickly? Tell us about how it ramped up.
It came pretty. It always kept getting bigger and bigger. And I think I can think of times like in
20 horses in training, 30.
our first World Show we went to together. I was reserve in 2 classes and he won one. That was our first World Championship. The next year he won. The next year I won. I mean, we rolled in through the Congress, the World Show pretty solid. It just kept going. Our kids were really good. Our kids won the all-around at the Congress a ton. But I don't really think we ever sat back and I can remember times thinking
Were you? I suppose what I'm trying to ask is, were you actively trying to get bigger, bigger's better, or not really?
Oh, we for sure had. We wanted to always be better, and we wanted to win those big shows. Don't you think?
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not asking correctly. I'm asking, did you have a desire to make more money, or it was better quality of horses? How did you avoid the production line? You already admitted, more horses, that's to me where horse trainers screw themselves, is that a lot of horse trainers always said to me, they say, Clinton, there's a cutoff, and roughly it's about 20, at least in the reining horse industry, about 25 horses. You don't make any more horses keeping 50 horses in training than what you do 25. Because at 50, you've got 2 more assistants, 2 more stall cleaners, you've got more headaches, you've got more problems. And at 25, you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
So again, more horses means more problems, more factory, more employees, etc. How did you avoid getting that big to where or did you make the mistake of getting so big that you had a factory going on that you had to scale back?
We at the first few years we took everything that came our way, and some we wish we didn't take.
Yeah, fair enough.
We had some not great customers at the beginning, but I would say within 4 or 5 years we were full.
Yep.
And then it was more the discussion, can we take another horse? And
what was full in your mind? 30 horses, 40 between the two of you?
In California, it was probably 20, 22, 23.
Yep.
yeah,
We utilize, I know what you're getting at now. We always went for quality, and we did not go for quantity, and we really had great clients, or kids that could ride.
Yep.
Those kids prepared our horses a lot, and we would just sit up there and watch them and be like, all right, we'll get you ready for the Western riding. They would get it ready, we'd watch them, then we'd get on and show it. And for years we had clients and kids that could ride so well that
Were you
kept
teaching
us
them
out
how
of
to
that.
ride, or they came?
No, we were teaching them.
Yeah.
We
So they're coming
taught
to
them
you for
exactly
lessons.
what we knew. We
Yeah.
taught them, and
Yeah.
so they would ride the horse exactly like I'd start to say, "Put," and they'd do it
Yeah.
because they learned how to
So
ride.
you
just
took
like
kind
that.
of that business model from Tim,
Yeah.
correct? Because those customers were riding those horses back in those days, correct?
well, and I think I took it because I 3-day evented, and you have to do it yourself.
Yeah.
There's nobody out there that's going to jump on and school your horse for you. So I was always brought up that I had to be efficient myself. And and again, we had great kids, and then we bought them great horses. And
Do you think the youth part of your business was bigger than the open part, like the youth show, like people buying horses for you guys to ride? Was how big? I'm trying to understand how big of the youth component was to your business.
it was
60-40, most of it 75.
probably 75-25 at the beginning.
Yes.
Probably our first half of our career was youth based because we got great youth horses that then we showed in the open. So they're winning the youth world, we're winning the open world, we're winning the Congress, they're winning the Congress. So that was a model for us that worked really, really well for many, many years.
Yep. Was there a number you got to, Charlie, that you felt like it's getting too many, you're not being able to get your arms around it?
I don't know if we ever really. I mean, we were at 60 head probably at one point with 5 trainers working for us. This wasn't that many years ago. I don't know if we ever really felt that it was just too like a factory.
It wasn't a
just
factory.
the
It
numbers.
was a machine.
Yeah.
It was a lot. We would go to the Congress with 60 stalls. And most people, 5-6 horse trailers go in, and people would go, how do you do all this? But again, we had other trainers who were very
Good at their job.
good at their job. And so they, Beth did all the English hunt seat horses, and we had Adam Wainscott at that time. He did the pleasure horses, and Charlie and I did the other. But there was definitely times at the Congress for me that I was like, wow, it's a lot. It was just a lot. And I think when we got to that size and the pressure of staying that good and that big, and most of our great youth kids had kind of aged out, then as soon as I think we got to that stage, we started thinking about how do we start unwinding this and making it a little more enjoyable again, because it was a big machine.
I want to touch on something that I don't think a lot of people want to talk about, but I want to ask you guys about it, about customers. When you said, you took on some that you shouldn't have. Obviously, when you're broke, you got to fucking eat. This lady's a pain in the ass, or this guy's a pain in your ass. You got to put food on the table. Your brain's telling you they're nothing but trouble, but you got to eat. So you take them as a customer, okay? But then there becomes a time when you're not necessarily that desperate, but you still got to look for business. You still got to pay the mortgage, etc. Tell us some of maybe the best bullet points or even lessons you've learned about things you regret about taking on customers that you wish you hadn't. Meaning that, did you know when you met them you shouldn't have taken them on? You know what I'm trying, I'll give you an example. For me, there's been 2 or 3 customers in my career that I've trained horses for that I knew when I met them they were trouble, but the greedy side of me says, Clinton, it's all right. Just take their money, you'll walk, you'll keep them happy, you'll make it right. And the other part of my brain is saying, Clinton, you're about to get fucked. This person is going to be way more trouble than what they're worth. And the horse side of me that wants money says, no, take this money. They're loaded, take it. Put up with their bullshit, put a smile on your face, and then I got to be honest, I always lost. The other part of my brain always won, because when I eventually got rid of them, it was such a relief that I got rid of this person out of my life because of the drama that they would bring, especially in those big barns when you've got lots of owners.
Yeah.
How do you keep the drama out of the barns? How do you keep bad customers or bad cancer out of your businesses? Is there any lessons you want to talk about that? We're not mentioning names. We're just talking about.
That's probably some of our biggest arguments between Charlie and I in our businesses was
early on.
Early on, and there's that fine line when you are taking everybody.
Yep.
And then you're full, and then you're trying to get rid of a bad apple.
Yes.
And I was always one. I was the one getting in a fight with the customers and cussing and causing trouble. Seemed like every red bud we went to, I was losing a customer, but Charlie was more the one that wanted to keep them right. And keep things going. And
why, Charlie? The money?
No.
You just had a big heart? You're a pussy? What is it? Tell us why you wanted to keep these assholes.
Seriously? Because you always thought it was my fault.
I don't
you
know.
big piece of shit, Jason.
I think they had great. They either had great horses or early on we kept several clients that were pretty much terrible
people.
Terrible fits for us is a better way to put it.
Oh, you politically correct piece of shit.
And we did, and I always did argue for them. I would always be like, no, we didn't have that many blow-ups, but if we did, it was usually over that. And the one thing that took me a while to learn was if you had a bad client, they are a bad apple.
Yeah.
And they do ruin it for the others. And so we figured out how to keep what clients really worked for us. And I'll never forget, we had a customer, was it Gene Perocchi? And he was a car salesman. Yeah. And he said to us once that there's a seat for every ass and an ass for every seat. And that's how this is. Because we're not the fit for every customer.
Yes.
And every customer is not the fit for us. So when you realize that, you realize who's going to fit. We had a very wealthy client. She owns a sports team. Not too many years ago, come to us. We had amazing clients. All of our clients we have now we're like a family.
Yeah.
We get along great. This lady came. She was not a fit. We knew on day one, just through a phone call to Jason.
Yeah.
Before we even got the horse, on Easter,
training,
she was chewing me out.
We took it anyways, which we knew we shouldn't have. She lasted 6 months. I sat down with her. We had a conversation. I said, we are not the barn for you.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter how much money she had or how much money she was going to spend. We weren't the right barn. So once you recognize that not everyone's supposed to be in your barn, and So we just,
And that's okay.
yeah, it's okay.
That's okay. Do you find as you guys have got older, at least for me it has worked this way, the more I've trusted my gut, the better I do.
For sure.
When you're younger, it seems like you second guess your instincts better. You know, your gut says this is going to be a fucking train wreck, and your brain says, fuck no, we're moving forward anyway. And every single time, I think my gut's always won.
Yeah.
And now, at my age now, I just trust my gut. Even if my brain argues, I don't give a shit. I just don't do it. Do you? Would you
He had a way smarter gut than me. Yeah, I finally do, but he was way better about.
You know, the other thing is we have had customers from day one. We had a customer named Harriet Yakutan who was one of our first customers, and she passed away a couple years ago. But she was like the matriarch of our barn, and I remember many times she would say, "Oh, Jason's not going to tolerate you acting like that." Like, we had people having our backs, and we would get customers from other trainers that would say, "Oh, they're the worst piece of shit person."
Yeah.
But because our barn didn't handle themselves like that, and because we didn't allow drama, and they knew that, I think there's a point.
Give some examples of shit you don't tolerate that other barns would have. How did you keep the soldiers in line?
We just wouldn't tolerate it. If somebody's stirring shit, I would always confront them.
Pull them aside and say, hey.
And I feel like when people know that they're going to be confronted for something they do, they might choose not to do it.
Yes.
It's the people that do it and nobody ever confronts them about it.
So basically, people do what you allow them to do, correct?
For sure.
But people's behavior is what you allow them to do.
And you can take somebody who is on the verge of being, they could be a good customer, they could be a bad customer, but you put them in a good environment, they're going to be a good customer.
Yeah.
You put them in an environment where it's toxic, they're going to be a bad customer.
Yeah.
And I think for us, when we were in a place in our careers where we didn't need the money, and they couldn't say, well, you're working for me.
Yeah.
Because we could say, we're allowing you to train with us.
That's correct. And that changes the thing completely.
The whole dynamics
very much so.
changed. And we had to...
Not that you abuse it, not that you take advantage of it, but there is a sense then when they know.
That's what I feel. They knew that we could ask them to leave.
Yes.
And I think from that point forward, we just didn't have issues with trainers, our clients, even ones that I think are on that borderline. They know that we don't need their money, and it's a privilege for them to ride with us, and it's a privilege for us to have them as a client.
So nobody's got anybody by the balls.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and also we if you have a problem, come talk to us. That's what we try to tell everyone in our barn. Like, don't go talk to the other client. Just come talk to us. If you're not happy, let's talk about it. So that makes a big difference, because a lot of, once they get to talking in the barn, and then they kind of go in little groups, then you're going to be in trouble. But we keep it very open communication. I think that makes a big difference.
What is in your world, from the all-round world, what are some of the hardest things to get customers to understand about your world? Like, that they might not understand coming into it? Or is there any particular things that you have, like lessons that you have to keep repeating to a customer? Like, for example, I'll give you an example. In the reining world or cow horse world, you have to educate these customers that you just can't show these horses every other weekend. They're like a race car. Every time you put them on the track, they get a little damaged. So you don't want to race them every weekend. You do have to take them to school and shows. You do have to spend money, take them to a horse show, never win a check. You're there to school them, make them behave in that show environment. So that's something I found that I have to keep educating people that you just can't, once they're trained, it's not as easy as just show them every single weekend. You have to school them and keep them right. I'm just using that as an example. In your world, is there any particular lessons that you notice you have to keep reinforcing to customers about your industry?
Well, ours is very different than the reining. You have to actually practice, and you have to show. Like, to do good at the trail, the more you show, the better you're going to be, probably. So the horses don't actually get sour, because our pattern changes every day.
Yeah, so it keeps it interesting.
And so I think you have to you do have to show, and you do have to practice, but you have to also understand it's a process. So if you come out and win right at the beginning, you're probably going to be in trouble in 6 months. But you're better off to start sucking at the trail first. That way you learn how to do it right. And so it's a process, and it's a long process, and you have to be accepting of that. So we try to teach our clients, like, listen, we're going to learn to do it right. We're not just going to put you on and put it. I can put a tune-up on a horse and make you win a class, but that's only going to last a couple times.
Love Clinton's Uncut and Real Raw podcast? Get the merch. T-shirts, caps, and shot glasses, all available from sweet and innocent to spicy and raw. Shop the full line at shop.downunderhorsemanship.com.
How do you know what it takes to become successful? Talk to someone who's done it. Clinton Anderson became a multi-millionaire by leveraging his passion for horse training into a global brand and media empire, starting with nothing but the change in his pocket and the will to succeed. In doing so, he revolutionized an industry and became a celebrity. Now, you can put his experience and advice to work for your business. With Clinton Anderson's business consultancy, you can tap into Clinton's unique perspective, hear his straight talk, and get his no-nonsense advice. Just imagine yourself armed with Clinton's hard-earned knowledge and entrepreneurial spirit. So whether you own a ranch or any sort of business at all, we invite you to discover the transformative power of Clinton Anderson's leadership and innovation in your business. Call 1-888-287-7432 to take your business to the next level today.
Okay, guys, we're back. A couple of things we want to talk about. We're going to talk about Texas and how you moved from California to Texas. But let's talk about the breakup. So you two are together. You come out of the fucking closet. Everybody's fucking, everybody's training horses. Where does this end? At what point does fucking harmony break up here?
The internet.
The internet. Fuck those internet whores. I can't say they've got me too, so I'm not ashamed.
The internet was the beginning.
Fucking Grindr came on and you two said fuck each other.
The beginning of the end.
So what year is this? So how long you two stay together?
97, 96.
97, 97, 98.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's what I really want to know. Everybody fucks and breaks up. But what I really want to know is this. What made you two smart enough to end your personal relationship as a couple, but be smart enough to say, we can work together, we can be professional, we can get along, we can respect each other, and we can be great partners in a different circle? Does that make sense? Because let's just be honest, very few people can break up and work with their ex. And I'm talking about a fucking touchy subject, but fuck it, it is uncut and real raw. How did you two figure that out? Was it difficult? Was it not difficult? Was it a natural flow? Did you want to fucking kill each other for 6 months? You know what I'm saying? Let's just get real about this.
We've really never talked about this, so
well, fuck it. Have a drink and let's swallow up and let's get on with it.
It'll be interesting his take, but my take was it was, I believe it was 1997 at the World Show when everything kind of went south.
Yep.
And a mentor of ours, Leonard Grenier, who had a ranch up the road, and we really respected him, literally pulled us aside and said, "You guys have way too much to lose if you allow, your barn to break up."
Yeah.
And coming from somebody who's,
Was he a smart businessman?
Yeah, very smart, and he was just somebody we respected, and I thought it was very interesting that somebody like that, who I would never think would be involved in, our relationship, would tell us that we had something great going on and we should figure out how to make it work. And
did he tell you both that, or just you?
I remember it being us both, but it could have just been me. But
now in 1988, how old are you guys now?
30.
30. Okay.
29, 30.
So you guys have been together maybe a decade.
8 years.
8 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we made the choice to do counseling. We did counseling for quite a few months, just in order to try to see if we could keep our business together.
Okay.
And we both knew that we were stronger as a team than apart.
Was that obvious to you guys right from the beginning? Even though I'm not saying it wasn't a struggle, but was it a pretty obvious thing that you two had a great fucking business model here?
We had a great business at that time.
Well, I'm asking Charlie, was it obvious to you?
Absolutely. We take the business part, we work together amazingly well and complement each other really well.
And we had great horses, great clients, and it was tearing them apart too to try to figure out what they were going to do. We were still in California, so we went to counseling, and it definitely was a good couple years that it was pretty tough.
For 2 years, we never spoke other than working together.
Yes.
It was a rough 2 years, and I don't know how we pulled that off. But yeah, 2 years.
Well, it takes a lot of fucking credit to be perfectly honest. All jokes aside, all bullshit aside, not very many people, I don't give a fuck who you fucking, what team you pick, can do what you guys did. It takes a lot of credit to do that. It takes a lot of humility to actually know that we've got a good thing going here. Can we just keep our emotions out of this, not to fuck this up? Because basically you had a great thing going. The only thing that could fucking blow this ship up is you two, correct?
Yeah, for sure.
That was simply it. So a rough couple of years, but in those couple of years, did the business go backwards? Did the business still flourish? Were you able to just survive? You know, emotionally it's probably pretty tough. I get that. But business-wise, did things fall apart a little bit, or did you keep it together pretty good?
We kept it together. We won our first Super Horse in '98.
Yep.
We won the all around the paint world that year.
Yep.
We had an amazing.
See, Charlie, that just shows that you're a terrible lay motherfucker. See how much you won when he quits fucking you?
Terrible.
I'm just fucking with you, Charlie. Seriously, you shitty lay.
I can remember thinking like we couldn't even get along at night, and I'm fully to blame. But we couldn't hardly get along at night.
Could he say that again?
Yeah. Hey, speaking to the microphone, asshole.
We could go to the horse show.
Jason, I'm going to cut that clip out and send it to you as a ringtone. Okay?
I will own it.
That's all right. Hey, Jason, I've fucked up more. Charlie, I've fucked up more relationships than I'd like to care to admit. Okay? I didn't fuck anything up. Captain Morgan and my dick fucked it all up. I personally didn't fuck any of it up. Okay?
Well, you know, in all honesty, we weren't a great fit as a couple anyway. The reason we were basically together is we joined our businesses.
Yes.
And we were the only two gay guys we knew, and it, you know, that's kind of how it was. And
all jokes aside, when you work as much, this is my fault too. When you're a fucking workaholic, you go to the barn at 5 a.m., you leave the barn at 8 p.m., and you go to bed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And when you're not working, you're fucking sleeping. So who are you around? That's who you're around. You end up dating who you're around. You end up fucking who you're around. I don't give a shit what team you bat for. That's a pretty natural thing to do, to be perfectly honest. Because when you're really that serious about horses, mate, tell me the truth. You don't have a social life.
Yeah.
They are your life, correct,
Yeah,
Jason?
for sure.
So yeah, I can relate to that 100%. You know, I've made the mistake and I'll never do it again. I don't want to walk with somebody all day that I'm sleeping with. Because at the end of the day, you know what you say when you're eating dinner? Honey, what'd you do today? And you know what they say? The same fucking thing you did. How do you know that? Because I fucking stood beside you all day. I'll never do that again for all the money in the world, have a relationship with somebody that I have to work with all day and then go home and see him at nighttime. Never in a billion years. So I can relate to that. 100% is why you two got together and the stresses of it.
Yeah.
It's not fucking easy. So after those couple of years, okay, you're an arsehole, Charlie, but I forgive you, okay? And we get that patched up. Was it, from that point on, was it pretty easy to work together from that point on, after those first couple of years?
I think when we moved to Texas.
Well, tell us about the move, yes.
I think 2 years in California, and then we were like, yeah, we're going to buy a ranch in Texas together. And now we're apart. And I don't know what made us, we just knew.
Yeah, but what was it? Better horses in Texas, more money, better horse shows? What was the reason?
Well, we could never afford a ranch in California. And we were always driving, you know, to all those other shows, the Congress in Florida. And we just realized that it's centrally located. We had some friends that lived in Texas, and we could actually afford to buy something in Texas, and basically being centrally located, I think.
And our clients now lived all over the country.
Yeah.
You know, there was still a majority were California. We were going to shows all over the country. So we didn't have to have that client base locally anymore. Yeah. Because we had them from all over the place.
So does that mean those kids and those clients aren't riding with you every day as much as they used to then?
Well, some bought houses in Texas so the kids could ride with us. We had a lot of that when we first moved there. The kids would come live with us. We had kids everywhere. So they kept riding pretty solid. So.
And the first year we went to Texas.
Did you buy your own place? You leased? What'd you do?
We bought a ranch.
And you're in Pilot Point, correct?
In Pilot Point.
What made you move there? Out of all the places you could have gone?
We had some friends that lived there.
Okay.
And yeah, we had some
friends. And it's right across the street. I'm a mile from where I worked when I worked with Troy.
Okay.
And so I knew that area. We wanted to be within an hour of an airport.
Yep.
So it just seemed like the right place to be. And that's where the top trainers were. Basically our whole career, we knew that Pilot Point, Texas was the place to be.
Okay. Had the Texas horses and horsemanship rose, meaning that, remember when you said back when that Tim guy, the horses that were doing the trail in California was so much more advanced than coming back to the trail and the world show at that area. Had everything balanced out a lot more by that point? Is everybody still, is there a, you get what I'm trying to say?
It was balancing, but
Balancing.
California was still dominating when we left.
in the trail.
They still were, for sure.
In the trail especially.
Yeah.
Why that one event? Why not the Western Pleasure? Why not some of the other events?
Well, the trail, the guy who's really changed the whole dynamics of trail is Tim Kimura. He was a part of the open circuit in California. As
a trainer?
He was a youth.
He was a youth.
And then he was a trainer, and then he also designed a lot of the trail courses.
Okay.
So when we were in California, we rode his trail courses every weekend. We were riding one of his trail courses. And then AQHA started hiring him. So he would come out to the World Show and put these courses that the California people could all ride, but the rest of the country was behind. And it probably took a good 10 years, because then he started giving clinics all over the country, and then he'd go to the other shows all over the country. So we probably had 10 good years at the World Show where we felt like we had an advantage and that we did pretty darn good. It's not like that anymore, because he's been doing it for 30 years.
Yeah.
But that's the reason that California was so good at the beginning, is because the guy who did all the trail courses is the guy that then came to the World Show and the big shows. And so everybody from California was ahead of the game.
So the Western Pleasure, the horsemanship, the other events, it was pretty balanced, or not?
Western riding was pretty salty in California, on the West Coast in Arizona, and it still is. Horsemanship was good, but the pleasure, probably not.
Okay.
It wasn't the dominant in the Western Pleasure.
Okay, right. So you moved there because the better trainers are there, easier to get to the major horse shows, etc. What made you pick the ranch you were on? You just like the area?
It's funny, because there's a square that's there, and that was literally the only place we didn't want to live, because we didn't want to cross paths with every trainer that lived on those roads. And it turned out that there was a ranch for sale, and we could afford it, and
that's where you moved
that's where
to.
we bought.
So now your assholes are your buddies now.
Yeah.
That's funny. Okay, so when you moved to Texas, did the business get bigger, smaller? Where are we now? How many horses we got in training? How many trainers we got? How'd this thing grow?
We got to Texas probably with, I think...
What year is this?
2000.
Okay.
So
24 years ago, a long time ago.
Yeah. When we left California, we only lost a few clients, or left a couple clients, like maybe 2. Everyone came, and the business we got there and more people came. And then we hired, we didn't really have an employee when we started there. But we just kept adding, Beth came 2 years. She'd worked for us in California. She's a girl that had been with us since she was 9.
As a youth trainer?
Yes.
No, she was that kid that would be dropped off at the barn and spend all day.
We didn't meet her parents until she was almost 35 or almost 40.
So you thought she was an orphan for all those years?
Yeah, we basically, she just
like
come
the
ride.
stork just dropped her off every morning.
So she ended up coming to Texas, I think 2 years after we moved there. And she came, and she was she got married really young. And so she just started working for us full time. So it was me, Beth, and Jason. And then we kept slowly adding other trainers, because it just kept getting bigger and bigger. So
that goes on for another 20 years. You keep rocking it out. Any major changes in your business model in those years?
Other than we quit training kids probably around 2018, I think.
What made that decision? Because kids have been a big part of you guys' career. What was the pro and con to kids? What was the fun part about kids, and what was the part that wanted to fucking blow your brains out?
Well, we used to have great kids. And then we went through a spell
Some shitty kids.
No, we had some. We used to have great kids.
Tell the fucking truth.
We had the best kids in the country without the money.
Okay.
And then we had some kids with money that didn't have the talent.
Because they didn't want to ride hard?
They just didn't have the talent.
Right.
And so there was definitely a funny moment, which I'm not going to completely go into, but where another trainer said, "You used to have Charlie's Angels, and now you have," and we looked around and we're like, "Oh,
Hey kids, get your shit together! You're embarrassing the boss."
And so we had a couple of kids that were like 16. We we'll finish them through their 18, but we're not going to take anybody that is younger than 16.
Yeah.
And so it was like a 3-year kind of phase out for the kids. And you know, it just, when you go to these horse shows like Sun Circuit and you have a jumping arena and a youth arena and a Western arena and a trail arena, there's, you know, we're lucky because there's at least 2 or 3 of us to do that. But when you are able to get rid of a whole division, it just lightens the entire load.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of the very first step of us cutting back.
Yeah. Were you exhausted, all honesty? Were you mentally and physically starting to get tired? Were you getting exhausted? Are you going to a horse show every weekend, every other weekend? Like, how's it wearing on you guys physically and mentally?
Well, actually, I think that at that point it wasn't. We were good.
Okay.
Because the selects now had become such a big division, and we had
And just for people that don't understand what select means, just educate people real quick.
50 and over.
So adults 50 and over.
Yeah, and it's probably only been around in the last 20 years.
Probably.
And what was the point of that select class? What was the whole concept of it?
Well, they developed I guess the amateur division was one big division, and I'm sure the people that were, you know, older and, you know, couldn't compete with the young amateurs that are 19 years old and 20 years old.
Yes.
So they added this 50 and over division, which was really well received. And a
what
lot of those those selects started doing the events that they were no longer doing, like the showmanship and horsemanship, because they didn't feel like they could compete.
Yes.
And then we started getting a lot of selects. So our business was youth kids and selects. And the youth kids come with 2 parents, a grandparent, and
a lot of
timeline.
expectations.
They know that their youth career is ending at 18. Selects come with maybe a spouse and a glass of wine,
And a bottle of
and
wine. I
they
was
want to
just
have
gonna
a good
say.
dinner.
Yeah, that's
And
fucking
so
awesome.
when the weather gets bad, they're out just like we're out now. We're like, no, we don't need to win the Western Riding at 1 a.m. in the morning.
Yes.
And so we figured that out.
Yeah.
So that was part of the transition to not do kids.
Yeah.
We had amazing kids, but now we were going to
Yeah.
take care of these selects. And now we're more in we want to make the select experience the most enjoyable, fun experience, because that's what they're there for. And they'll spend a lot of money if they have a good time.
I've heard this story more than once, and you guys can tell me if the story's true or false, but I've heard a version of this story many times from YouTube. And I'm not exactly sure who does this, or you both do this. But because I've always asked questions when you guys' name come up. I always like knowing why people are so successful and why they do what they do and what's their secrets. And I just love learning about successful people. And when people would bring up, you know, Charlie and Jason's customers, just love them. And I'd say, what makes them so good at what they do? Like, why are their customers so loyal? And I've heard a version of this story many times. They'd say, here's an example. A 65-year-old lady will be at the World Show, and she'll fuck up a pattern, or she'll fuck up a Western Riding, or some class she's in, she'll fuck it up. And she'll walk out upset and crying. And one of you will say, but look what you did. Look how well your outfit matches your earrings and your saddle pad, and the horse looked like $1 million. And you just talk about all the positives that went right. You don't brow bash the shit out of them.
Yep.
And you don't tell them everything they fucked up, because they already know what they all fucked up. But you just start listing off all the positives and all the great things they did and how well they looked. And he said, Clinton, you'd be amazed. These old girls just get a big smile on their face and they wipe up the tears and they're like, fuck yeah. You turn a negative into a positive. Is that a bullshit story or is that true? I've heard that many times.
Well, they're there to have a good time.
Yes.
And so they're not there to have a beat down.
Yes.
You know how terrible they are. Tell them they can't ride.
Yes.
You know, whatever. So I think we do try to, you know, we're going to go work on it.
Yes.
But we're not going to beat them up over it.
Yes. They walk out with a sad face and a tear, and they walk away from you guys after a little pep talk, fucking with a smile on their face, wanting to go again. And that's a unique business model. Because a lot of trainers will chew their ass when they get out.
Well,
whether they're a youth or whether they're 65, you dumb bitch, what are you doing this for? I told you not to do this. I told you to put your left leg on. You know, they chew their ass when they walk out of the arena, and you two do the complete opposite. You say, yeah, you might have fucked a couple things up, but goddamn, you look sexy doing it. You know what I mean? You talk about the positives.
I think going back to what you talked about, learning from other people.
Yeah.
You know, I had an incredible teacher when I was showing hunter jumpers, and her philosophy was give 3 positives to a negative. No matter what you did, she's like, your heels look great, this looks great, but let's work on.
I love that. 3 positives to 1 negative.
Let's work on this. And so I would, as I'm riding around, I would be trying so hard to turn that negative into positive that I realized at that point how smart she was, because I was learning off positive, and then she would just pick one thing, and then that whole next lesson, all I'm worrying about is trying to make that better. And I go to horse shows and you see people yelling and screaming, and I just feel like for myself, if you're a person that's at the World Show, you're trying your hardest. You're there because you want to be there. You're there because you want to do as well as you can. So the night before, we're very good about leaving that arena the night before with a positive. And it might be going down the Western Rhine one time and I'll be like, that's perfect, let's put them away, that's great, because they're gonna go to bed that night with confidence. And I see other trainers going down 40 times. And I feel like it's the trainer's insecurity that's making that happen, to where I'm secure in my training, I'm secure in my ability, and Charlie's the same, and our customer just went to bed thinking they can win the world. Now maybe they're not the next day, but they're not gonna stay up all night thinking about that they can't do it. And the same with when they come out. I mean, it's already done. So why in the world are you ripping them apart? Are you ripping them apart because you think all eyes are on you and people are judging you? And I think that's what happens. People are like, oh, that's my customer, they think I'm terrible. And we just never felt like that. You know, our customer wanted to be there, they paid us to be there, they tried their hardest, and you know, we want it to be a good experience.
That's awesome.
Ever wanted to own a champion? Clinton Anderson, world-class horse trainer and competitor, has been spotting and developing promising horses into greatness for decades. Now, he is offering an exclusive ownership opportunity to create champion horses. Introducing Clinton Anderson's Performance Partnership. In this exclusive program, you and Clinton will co-own a top-tier performance horse that will be meticulously trained and cared for by Clinton Anderson himself. This isn't just an investment, it's a first-hand experience of horsemanship excellence. With Clinton's help and advice, you'll choose the horse that resonates with your ambitions, and Clinton takes the reins from there. From training to stabling, from the practice arena to the winner's circle, Clinton's unwavering dedication ensures that your equine athlete reaches its full potential. This partnership is about more than business. It's about a shared passion for equestrian excellence. And Clinton Anderson isn't just your trainer, he's your partner, fully invested in every horse's success. Together, you'll share in the excitement, the prestige, and the profits. Membership is strictly limited to ensure each investor receives personalized attention and commitment. It's your chance to be part of an exclusive equine ownership community that combines the excitement of competition with the satisfaction of success. Don't miss your opportunity to join Clinton Anderson's Performance Partnership, a unique collaboration that transforms dreams into equine champions. Experience the heart of horsemanship excellence. Find out more at ClintonAndersonPerformanceHorses.com.
Okay, so you get rid of some shitty kids, okay? I'm paraphrasing here, okay? It's my podcast, fuck it, I'll get the blame. But get rid of some shitty kids. We get into the old girls, they're having a great time, they're fucked up on wine. Sounds like you guys are enjoying some of their company too, because it's more about fun and enjoyment rather than hustling to win every world championship. At what point do you guys say, we got to slow down, we got to change our business model? Because I heard rumor-wise you're into some barrel racing now, horses now, Jason, or you guys have branched out into some other equine disciplines. I'm kind of wanting to get into that phase of the business. How do you realize did you both look at each other one day and say, hey, we've won everything we want to win, we've got enough money to do it? Was there an epiphany for you guys? Did you guys wake up one day and say, fuck, we got to get off this 60 horses to the Congress bullshit?
I didn't. He did. And we have been maintaining that top level for our own showing for many years. And I remember like about 5 years ago, he started saying, like, I don't like this pressure. I don't like the pressure that I have to win this class, especially, namely the World Championship in the Senior Western Riding. We won it 18 years in a row.
18 years you won the senior.
Well, from 2005 to 2022, we won it every year.
That's fucking
One of us won it. He won it the most.
That's probably never been done.
We were first and second several times. We were first, second, and third many times too. But we won it. And so he started feeling the pressure, and he would say it to me, and I was like, I didn't get it. I couldn't comprehend what he was talking
That's
about.
because he wasn't winning it.
Yeah, you losing son of a bitch. Do you thrive on pressure, Charlie?
I do like pressure. I do.
Like, all jokes aside, some people get off on it.
I do like the pressure. I do. And didn't really, and I couldn't understand why he was saying this. And for like about 5 years ago, and he had won it several. I mean, I won it 15 was the last time I won it.
Yeah.
And so he was having to win it. I was kind of there in the mix, but he kept saying, we argued about it a little bit. And then finally one day, like around 21 or so, I started realizing what he was talking about. And so he made a comment.
Was there a moment that made that come to light for you?
Well, I just realized how much it was affecting him. And he was riding less and less, and I could tell it wasn't a burning thing for him to ride a horse and to compete on horses. And then the amount we were going to the shows with was a crazy amount. We were taking 30 to 35 horses to a show, and we were doing a great job of managing it all, but you would take it home at night. I take a lot home at night, and so I kind of started appreciating it. And so then in 2022, I can't remember if you going in the World Show if he said this was going to be my last time, but I started understanding where it's coming from.
Yeah.
I still am not even there yet today. I'm close.
Would you say, Jason, you got burnt out? Would that be a fair statement to say? It's hard to do the same profession for 25 years and not be burnt out.
Yeah, you know what, I think every year I'd be like, how do you reinvent what's important to you? And how do you, we've won this so many years in a row. And for me...
do you think it was goal setting? You've won all your goals. You must have won everything you set out to win.
That's the biggest thing I think about.
I think there's a couple things to this. I think we didn't need the money anymore.
Yep.
So you're not doing it, and then we'd be at these shows going, why are we doing all this? I mean, and another trophy didn't really matter.
That's right.
I mean, obviously you want to stay at the top because it's expected, and that's just who we try to be. But at some point you're like, you see people dying at 50 and 45, and I'm like, at some point we don't need the money.
Yeah.
And this goal, winning every year, the same class started becoming pressure. And I realized that nobody's going to be happy. I'm not going to be happy with myself. My customers aren't going to be happy if I don't win. The only acceptable outcome is winning. And I had the horses. I had the best horses in the country, and I didn't have just one. I had 1, 2, 3. But then as I started just having one, the pressure started mounting, and I just felt like, I don't really feel like I was burnt out. I just wanted the streak to be over. Yeah. Because I wanted to enjoy it again. And I was not in the last 3 years of the World Show. The amount of pressure I put on myself, I just,
the last World Show, did you win?
I did.
Okay. Well, kudos to you, because you know how many people cannot fucking quit on top? Yeah. That's one thing. Bob Avila sat in that chair and he said, Clinton, when I asked him, why did you retire when you retired? Because he said, I was on top. Yeah. He said, I didn't want to be a burnout, crippled up horse trainer that everybody looks at and says, man, he used to be good 20 years ago. He said, I wanted to quit on top. He said, I said, do you show at all anymore? He said, not at all. He said, I'll ride at home, I'll help my wife, but I am never going to show again. Do you know how many world championship boxers, Jason, go back for one more bout? For sure. And they get their ass kicked. There's an art to knowing when to quit. Yeah. Ask every fucking bank robber. Yeah. They go back for one more bank, don't they? They go for one more bank and they get caught. Yeah. So kudos to you for recognizing that, quitting on the top of your game. I respect it. I don't look down on it. I respect it, because I can name 10 horse trainers that I knew in their glory days were kicking ass, and now you watch them show and it's just sad, to be honest. And I don't mean that disrespectfully, but I feel bad for them because I knew how great they were, and it's just called getting older. Yeah. And knowing when your fucking time is up to quit on top is a big deal. So I think you're very smart to do that. So you made that decision. So where's your next goal? What did you decide to do?
Well, we since 2000 we started getting into the barrel horses, and
what made that interest? Tell me, how, out of all the fucking things you two could have done with your money, why barrel horses? What intrigued you? You went from lope and slow, reins down around their knees, to fucking Seabiscuit racing around 3 barrels.
Well, he started it.
Well, you did? This is back in California days. We decided, we talked about getting a horse of our own. We talked about doing a reiner, having a reiner, but everything we do is scored, everything's judged. And so at Rawhide, there had been, it was rodeo based. I just didn't go that direction, but I appreciated all that stuff. And so I decided to buy a barrel horse. And so about a young horse, he pole bended on it. I barrel raced on it. It ended up going to the FR in 2000. That was our first one.
And who trained it?
It was trained when we got it.
Yeah.
It didn't have a big record.
Yeah.
It was only 4 years old. So I just started going to the jackpots and doing well. And it was a really good pole bending horse. It was just like our hobby, but we somehow got lucky right off the bat. For a $12,000 horse, ended up with a horse that was NFR caliber, won Cheyenne. Charmaine James leased it from us the next year as a 5-year-old. Mm-hmm. But that was just our hobby for many years. And then when we got Slick, I found Slick at the World Show.
What's his
Slick
name?
by Design.
Okay.
He's a black stallion that we found at the World Show. We were kind of dabbling in it. We were thinking about having a breeding stallion that was a barrel horse because our clients owned show horses and we didn't want to compete with them.
Yep.
And that just kind of changed everything. So Slick, we got him as a 5-year-old.
I want to ask one question before it pops out of my mind. When you're going from Western riding, it's so precise. Loose rein, trail, everything's so precise. Within an inch of everything's got to be right. How did it feel to fucking cowboys and Indians chase one around fucking 3 barrels, whipping and spurring and kicking like a crazy man? Like seriously, we're going from one extreme to the other. Was that hard for you to do? Was it exhilarating? Did you love it? Did you like this is fucking weird. I spent 25 years fucking loping slow and now I'm hauling ass around here. What did that feel like?
Well, for me, it's the only thing that scared me still.
Okay.
So it was a rush.
Yes.
I do think good riding is really important in barrel racing. Mm-hmm. And I really worked on being like a really correct rider, and you don't always see that in that world. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I just like the rush of it. I like this. Did
you take to it quickly? Was it was it strange for you?
No, I wasn't. I had done it a little bit in boarding school.
Okay.
Like I'd been goat tire. I'd done a little bit of all that stuff. So it was just a rush, and it was just fun.
And it's not.
It was ours.
It's not that different because it's all about timing.
Yeah.
You know, and being precise in timing. So, you know, and it's for us both doing it, which I don't.
So do you do it too, Jason?
I did back then.
Okay. Did you enjoy it?
I did a lot. Yeah.
Okay. Because you went from one industry to something else. Did you have to go back and eat some humble pie, be a rookie, and learn the ropes again?
Oh, yeah. So, a couple things. I hear people all the time when I'm helping with Western riding saying the cones are coming up so fast, and it's the same with pole bending. But so the poles do come up fast, but I could put myself in my customer's shoes because now they're just, you know, you're hitting a pole going shit, and then by that time you hit another one. You know, so your head and your mind is behind what's happening rather than the good people who see it happening as it's happening.
Yeah.
But with that and everything we do being judged, it's just nice to not be judged.
It's just nice to be a timed event.
It's just nice to blow some steam and it is what it is.
Yeah.
And not have the best go and then have somebody tell you it wasn't the best go even though it was the best go. So for us it was just enjoyment, and we did it for a long time, but then when we started having the professional horses and the NFR horses and the good horse, I didn't want to put my money into an average horse that I could ride.
Yeah.
So we bought the sweepstakes pole bending champion for myself to ride.
Okay.
And it was a disaster.
Why was it a disaster?
Because I could not get through the poles.
You kept knocking them over?
Every one of them.
You've been drunk, motherfucker, just ran over all of them.
This horse was so good that it was so beyond it was embarrassing and defeating. So it's a perfect example, like when somebody buys something, a Ferrari, and they shouldn't be driving a Ferrari.
Yeah.
Like that was me, and we learned our lesson, and we had to
that's
dummy it
what's
up.
cool about your story that I have a lot of respect for you is that, and I'm sure people listening will have respect for you, is that you got out of your comfort zone. You got out of your world. I don't give a fuck how much money you've won in any industry. You take somebody out of their industry and you put them in another sport, you have to learn again. Yeah. You have to be a rookie. You have to learn a whole new skill set again. You know, so I respect that. I don't look down on it. You know, I respect it. What about you? What was the hardest thing about you adapting to the barrel racing? Did you do the pole bending too, or just the barrel racing?
Well, I went a lot more than Jason. I was doing it 3 nights a week. I was going to jackpots when we got to Texas.
Okay.
So I really craved it. I kept the horses tuned, and he would get on and practice or go, if we went to an event or whatever, he would compete. But I don't know, there was a period where I really craved it, and I went a lot. Mm-hmm. So it just, you know, I knew where my place was in barrel racing.
Where is your place?
My place is to get a horse really solid, get it really seasoned, win on it locally, but then I was putting a girl on it, and we did that 3 or 4 times.
Why girls? All jokes aside.
Well, I
They're
really
better
like
riders, they're
rodeo.
faster, they look sexier. What is it?
Rodeo. I just loved rodeo. We both liked rodeo. We went to the NFR way back in the when we started. We would go to the NFR just to watch. We didn't know a thing, but I really liked the rodeo atmosphere.
And you need the girl to do that.
Yep, and I had to have a girl to do it. So we hooked up with a couple different girls throughout the years, and if they needed one seasoned, I would get on it and go season it.
What training techniques do you think you took from your all-round performance industry? And did you take any of those techniques to adapt into your barrel racing horses training techniques?
Oh, for sure. A lot of body position,
Moving
a lot
body
of
parts.
more basics. I think that's a part that years ago the barrel racing industry, I'm not saying today, but they didn't worry about leads so much. Matter of fact, one of the horses I got from Ohio, 15 years ago, didn't take its right lead at all, and it's a horse that goes to the right first. And I called the kid I bought it from. I'm like, hey, he doesn't take his right lead. And he's like, yeah, I never worried about that. But once I worked on it, then the horse was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So a lot of just correctness, and then you go fast. But fast is not what it's all about. It's about the horse that makes the straightest lines and the most correct path, really.
Yep.
So I just took a lot of that and just adapted it.
Okay. So the stallion you've got, you enjoying being an owner?
A lot, yeah.
Okay. Who rides it for you? Who shows it? Who trains it?
Well, we bought him in 13.
End of 12, yeah.
13, and then Michelle McLeod just took him to 4 NFRs, and then a year after that, he had a year off, and then Stevie Hillman took him, and now he's just a breeding stud.
Okay. What did you learn from that industry as a business model that you either liked or didn't like? From the barrel racing industry, what did you think was kind of behind the times, and was there anything that you thought was advanced or ahead of the times? What I'm saying is, anytime it's like when you change countries, when you go to a foreign country and you're not from there. When you land on the airport, everything's new. So like shit stands out to you, positive and negative, and when once you live there for 6 months, it's like, fuck, it's all the same, okay? What stood out in your mind, positive or negative, about the barrel racing industry?
Well, I think the barrel race industry in the last 15 to 20 years has just been growing tremendously because there's a place for everyone.
Okay.
In our show world, sadly, there isn't a place for everyone anymore, in my opinion. Your top level's great, but to find a weekend show or a beginner show or a starter show for someone, they're really hard to find now. In the barrel racing world, there's a jackpot every weekend, and there's a 4D, and if you're terrible, if I have a bad ride, you can still win a check and still get your name called.
Okay.
And so we realized that market, when we got slick, was just growing, and they've, since 2013 till now, they've added all these huge incentives, the amount of money in barrel racing, and it's affordable. Like we have horses in training, barrel horses in training.
Well, like, if you don't mind me asking, what's a barrel horse, on the average barrel horse cost to be in training, board and training? What's the average bill?
I think it's $1,200.
God damn, how do they survive?
We don't know.
The reason is
Fucking idiots, why don't they charge?
and they don't really charge for hauling, maybe 10 cents a mile,
What is
sometimes
wrong with
gas.
these people? Seriously.
But the difference is they can make money on every horse at every event.
Okay, so they keep half the prize money?
They
What do they
keep half
keep?
the prize money.
Is that where they make it up?
Yeah.
Do you think, all jokes aside, do you think they don't bill correctly like the rest of the Western industry because they don't know any better, or the customers won't pay it?
A little bit of both. I think
Do they not know what they're worth?
they're learning, but the last 2 years, the top barrel racers have earned over $1 million a piece.
Okay, and they get half that prize
And
money.
they get half that prize money. Well, actually, those girls rode a lot of their own horses, but the amount of money in the incentives in the last 6 years, the top 5 studs this year all produced over $2 million a horse. The money's just incredible.
So
everywhere
there's a
you go.
lot more prize money than what there is in your all-round world, correct?
Like I'm in the $250,000 club for NSBA, which is $250,000, which I just got a couple years ago. Charlie just got last year. So 30 years of riding, we made $250,000. So
You broke dick motherfuckers.
that's why you have to charge for training.
Yeah,
and
because you can't make it up.
you
in
can't
prize
make it
money.
in prize
I
money.
know, that's a fair statement. You
So-
got to charge for training because you can't get paid to win.
Yeah.
These girls can get 50% of the prize money, so they're keeping the training bills lower
Yeah.
on the banking on that they're going to win some prize money. Is that
and
kind
they,
of the theory?
and they can take 12, 15 horses to a barrel race, You know, and
How long does it take, time consuming wise, to train a barrel horse every day compared to your Western riding horse? Like, you know what I mean? Are they on them 30 minutes a day, 45 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day? You know what I'm trying to ask here? Let me give you an example. So I got out of the reiners, and now that I'm retired, I really enjoy the cow horses, okay? But it is a horrible business model, fucking horrible for a business model. And it's extremely difficult horsemanship-wise. It's extremely difficult to do all 3 events, but it's very time-consuming. You could train 2, almost 3 horses in the time it takes you to train a cow horse. Yeah. And Andrea Fapani, he's got into the cow horses now too. He's won $8 million in the reining. And he said, Clinton, I could never be a cow horse trainer because I'd have to ride half the amount of horses. You know, he said to me, he said, you know, the horse he won last year, he made the open finals, which is awesome. First time with the Futurity, makes the open finals, wins 60 grand on the horse in a 3-year-old year. He said, Clinton, he said, what's up with this fucking cow horse industry? He said, the most I got offered for this horse was $125,000. And it already won 60K as a 3-year-old, makes the open finals. He said, fuck, we paid that for the horse. You know what I mean? In the reining world, this thing would have sold for $350.
Yeah.
What is it? And I said, welcome to the cow horse industry.
I think it's a
they
good
don't bring any money. You ride the shit out of them for 7 years and they still bring the same amount of money. So it's as a sport, I love it. Make no mistake about it. I'm addicted to it. But as a business model, it's really shitty. So I'm asking you from a barrel racing perspective, could you train more horses in a day than what you could your Western riders, your trail horses?
I for sure think they can do more. And to be honest, they work crazy hours all the time, those barrel racers.
I'm not saying they don't work hard. I'm just asking.
But they're always having to go to a jackpot because that's how you get a horse pretty broken, pretty good. We're in the all-around thing, so we're teaching 2 or 3 events, so we do probably spend a little longer. I'm assuming they're probably 30 minutes. You think?
I don't know, actually.
Yeah. But I think they can do.
Do they have a lot of big barns in the barrel racing industry? 30, 40 horses in a barn, or they keep them pretty small?
I don't think so, because they, you know, at those barrel races, you know, most of the girls are one trick pony. I mean, they do it themselves. So, I mean, there's a few that probably have in the low teens, but I think most of them don't probably take, you know, eight horses to a barrel race, because that's all they can do, and they have to do it themselves.
Okay. So you don't go to any more AQHA shows at all, is that right, Jason?
I went to the World Show and to cheer Charlie on.
Okay. But you don't compete anymore. You're done with that and you're happy with that.
You know, I think so. I think I am.
I think you should be. You quit on top.
Well, I did.
All jokes aside.
You know what? If I end up wanting to do it again, it'd be a different feel, and I probably would never show the senior Western riding again.
Yes.
But right now I'm content. I have a lot of other things to do, and I really like the barrels, and I like the breeding, and we have a huge breeding business. So.
It sounds like you got some other goals.
Yeah.
Correct?
For sure.
So how many years, at the point you said I've had enough at the World Show, quickly add up in your head, how many years you guys you were training horses to that point in the all-round? 25, 30, 35?
We've been in Texas 24 plus 8, 32 years.
You know, I don't care if you're a cop, you're a nurse, you're a teacher, you're a horse trainer. When you do the same fucking job for 25 years and work that many hours, as horse trainers, a 12-hour day is not really a long day. That's pretty standard. You know what I mean? You're working long, extreme hours, 6-7 days a week. I don't care who you are, it's almost impossible not to get burnt out.
For sure.
A buddy of mine was a cop, and he was a detective, and he said, Clinton, he said, I said, why did you stay 35 years in the police department? Because he said, I could always move around. And I said, what do you mean? He said, every 7 years I changed to a different department. And I said, why'd you do that? Because he said, it stopped me getting burnt out. So I did detective work for 7 years, and then I went to undercover, and then I went to narcotics. So I did, you know what I mean? He said, I could change, I could still stay in the police industry, but I could change what division I went to every 5 to 7 years. And he said, I got to have some excitement again. He said, I got to learn something new. And I think that's very important. And it's hard. I think it's hard for anybody to work. Do you agree or disagree to do that many years without getting burnt out?
Yeah. No, for sure.
You know, what are your goals in the barrel racing industry, Charlie? I mean, Jason, sorry.
You know, just to keep finding the next great one.
Okay. You're trying to breed the next great one or buy the next great one?
We'll do either.
Either one? Are you got your own brood mares? Or are you trying to?
Yeah, this year we bought a really great race brood mare. We have she's produced 2.3 million. So we're trying to breed for some track horses. We bought the mare that won the average last year in the roping. So we have some rope horses we're breeding, and then we have a couple really great mares that I still have like 30 frozen embryos on one of our best mares. But we're gonna do probably 25 or 30 babies this year.
That's awesome. What about you, Charlie? What kind of goals you got now, mate? You've won everything you've wanted to do, I suspect. What are your goals now? What makes you get the fuck out of bed, Charlie? Seriously.
Well, I like to ride horses a lot still,
Okay.
but I don't want to ride near as what I used to ride. But I just finished Sun Circuit. We took 9 horses. It was amazing having that few horses. I won the Senior Western Riding, which is, I kind of feel like I have to win that. But I have a couple great horses this year. I think I can win it still. I think I have the best horses, to be honest.
So you're excited still to train?
Yeah, today.
Yeah.
I don't have
we're
many.
just talking
I don't
now.
have many years left.
Yeah.
But I have great horses and great clients. I really have clients that I really
Doesn't it
enjoy
make
helping.
a difference when you got a great client? When you show up to a horse show with somebody you actually like training horses for, it makes a big difference, doesn't it?
Yep. And they have goals that I want to see them achieve.
Yes.
So I have a couple clients, the clients I have left, I know what all their goals are, and I enjoy helping them. So that's kind of where I'm at. I haven't got to where Jason's at, but we just talked about it yesterday. Like, he's like, are you gonna do another year? Or are you gonna finish this year? I'm like, I don't know. I think I'll know. When I know,
Yeah, you'll know.
I'm gonna be like, sorry guys.
Yeah.
This is where it's at. And I think my customers all will support me, and they all kind of know.
Yeah.
But I do still really like to get up in the morning and ride a couple horses, like 2. That's how many I like to ride a day.
That's all right, but you still got. So have you noticed when you changed the industries, Jason, you felt some more passion coming back in you, some more goals, a little bit of that hunger you had in your 20s? Did you notice that or not really?
Well, we've been doing the barrels for 20 years as well.
See, I didn't know
25
that.
years.
See, okay,
Yeah.
I thought this was more in the last 5-6 years.
No.
This has been a long time now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but it is, the fraternity world is different than what we're used to doing in the show world. We're raising these babies, we're putting them in fraternity trainers. So it's kind of fun to see which ones work out and which ones are going to go on, and be rodeo horses.
That's awesome. And we're going to wrap it up, but before I wrap up every show with every guest, I like to ask them this one question, is that if you could go back, and I'll ask each of you this, if you could go back to a 20-year-old, a 21-year-old Jason and say, hey, don't fucking do this or do this, what would be the greatest lesson, or could be several lessons, that you would like to tell yourself? Charlie, do you know if he wants to think about it?
Ooh, I was just thinking too. I would probably, honestly, I wouldn't change much about what I've done. And I would say just worry about, just stay in your lane, focus on what your goals are, and not let, just don't let a lot doesn't matter. Worry about what matters. And sometimes I would get caught up in other stuff, but really if I just focus on what I know and what I do and what I like and what I want, it happens.
Don't get sidetracked.
Yeah.
Okay. Jason?
Yeah, I think there's not much I would change either. I think, we are where we are because of all the experiences we had. I think I'd
Good and bad.
Good and bad. And I think I'd tell myself that it's going to work out, because
Yeah.
I'm sure, a lot of times that you have self-doubt, and don't worry about what people are thinking. Just, again, stay kind of in your own lane. That's probably what I would say.
Well, you guys have a tremendous reputation in multiple disciplines. I hear extremely positive things about you. It's been an honor to get to meet you both, understand your story, why you're so successful. I know the podcast is inspiring a lot of young people to work harder, make more money, invest their money, not die broke. And I'm glad, because instead of now money being a dirty subject that nobody wants to talk about, through this podcast and the guests that come on, it is an important part to take care of your finances, take care of your money, and not die fucking broke in a single wide trailer. And you guys have a tremendous reputation, and I have a lot of respect for you, because you can do it all. You've changed industries. You've gone through personal development in yourselves, in the industry, etc. So cheers, fellas. Thank you for coming on.
Before we quit, we're supposed to do a shout out for our draft. Do you know we have drafts?
No, what is it?
We have drafts.
Oh, draft horses?
No, giraffes.
Giraffes. Oh, giraffes. You got a fucking giraffe? You
have-
queer motherfucker. You would own a giraffe, wouldn't you?
We have 5.
We said a baby born the other day.
Okay.
Yeah, and you're supposed to follow him on Gerald's.life.
Okay, you own 5. Are you fucking with me right now? You actually own a giraffe, like a motherfucker from Africa, correct? Come over here on a boat somehow in a canoe, got his ass kicked.
We just had a baby the other day.
You're shitting me. No. So you're letting giraffes fuck now and you're raising them, correct? Yeah. How do you own a giraffe, seriously?
Well, I actually don't own them. My partner owns them.
Okay. Is it a legal thing? And you have to smuggle these assholes in? How do you do it?
It's legal.
It is legal.
Yeah. And he has Galapagos tortoises.
What?
Oh, I've always liked tortoises more than
tortoises.
Before I liked horses, I like tortoises.
You mean a big fucking turtle?
Yeah, I have a 500-pound, 102-year-old. I have about 70 tortoises right now.
70?
We have a lot of exotics actually, but it started with tortoises, and then
giraffes started fucking.
Yeah.
What's next?
We have tapirs.
What are tapirs?
They're like a pig with a long nose.
They're not even related. They're closest related to a horse.
Are you sure this shit legal or you two are fucking
in Texas, pretty much everything's legal.
That is a good point in Texas. So what is your giraffe's Instagram? Does he have a fucking Instagram page?
And he just hit 100,000 today.
Okay, what's his fucking Instagram page?
We have...
what's it called? What's it?
Gerald's.life.
Gerald's.life.
On Instagram.
Yeah. That's how you follow this
or
guy.
Highpoint Haven on Facebook.
Highpoint Haven.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Boys, I've really enjoyed your conversation. You've been an inspiration to me and hopefully the people fucking watching. And proud to get to know yous and proud of your success. Cheers.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys. Today's episode was filmed and produced by Uncut Productions, marketing by Stewart & Associates, and organised and administrated by Down Under Horsemanship. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit the subscribe button and leave a rating. Follow us and stay up to date on social media, including Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. See you next time, mate. Cheers.